Good evening. We're calling to order the City of Oxnard Planning Commission regular meeting for Thursday, November 21, 2019. May we have roll call, please?
Chair Frank,
Here.
Vice Chair Chua,
Here.
Commissioner Chavez,
Here.
Commissioner Meyer,
Here.
Commissioner Sanchez,
Here.
Commissioner Dozier.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Good, thank you. Commissioner Dozier, will you lead us in the pledge?
Thank you, Chair. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Before we go into public comments, I think we have an introduction of new staff. Oh, let the record reflect that Commissioner Furing has arrived.
Thank you, Chair Frank. So we actually have two quick announcements I want to make. One is Dee Lee has now returned and is joining us, so I wanted to welcome her back to the chambers and the Planning Commission in particular. And sitting right next to Dee is Michelle Travis. Michelle Travis is a new employee with the City of Oxnard who's going to be helping us out with Planning Commission hearings moving forward. So both Dee and Michelle are going to be regular faces for you here, as well as electronically as we're getting information out to you in packets and all those great things that
Wonderful.
that they do.
Well, welcome to our world. We'll try to do our best to help you. Okay. We'll move on to item C on our agenda, public comments. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the Planning Commission on items that are not on our agenda tonight. I don't have any speaker cards. Is there anyone who wishes to speak at this time? All right. Is this a yes? Thank you very much. Okay, these are speaker cards for items on our agenda. So anyone want to speak on anything that is not on the agenda this evening? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. We'll move to our consent agenda. D1, approval of our October 3, 2019 minutes. Comments?
I move to approve with a minor correction to reflect a single word that says motion by Commissioner Dozier.
Where is that in here?
That would be on third page motion. Commissioner Chavez moved and Commissioner Dozier seconded a motion to continue the Rio Urban Development Project.
Okay.
Second.
Dee, are you with us on what needs to be modified?
So who is the correct person that's second?
No. He's saying that the word motion was put in the text twice.
Oh, okay,
That's all.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's on page 3 of the October 3 minutes. In the middle of the page where it says motion, it says Commissioner Chavez moved and Commissioner Dozier seconded a motion to continue. Just take out one word, motion. Okay, so we have a motion to approve the October 3, 2019 minutes with that modification. It was a motion by Chua and a second by Meyer. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay. Next, we'll move to approval of our October 17, 2019 minutes. Everyone have an opportunity to review any comments, changes, corrections?
Move.
We have a motion by Chavez. Second? I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I abstain. I wasn't here on that day.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so for the approval of the October 17 minutes, Dozier and Sanchez abstain.
And I also wasn't there, but I
Okay,
didn't
Meyer
understand that you don't-
abstains.
Okay. Do you need to abstain, or is
Yes.
it is, you required to abstain?
You can't vote yes or no, so You can't vote on the minutes if you weren't here.
I want here, even if I review, okay.
Right. Okay. Otherwise, we'll have virtual meetings, you know. I'm just saying. Okay, so we'll now move to our public hearings. And I think it appropriate at this time, before we commence those, to inquire of the commissioners if there's been any ex parte communications on any of these items that are on our public hearing agenda. Commissioner Dozier? No. Anybody?
No. Nope.
No.
No.
All right, well, I disclosed that I had a phone call from Shirley Godwin with respect to the subdivision on Saviors. Which one is that?
That's agenda item number 3.
Item 3. Yes. Okay, so we'll move to E1, project name Romero Duplex, planning and zoning permit number 17-500-14. This is Mr. Dobrowski. As
Thank you, Chair Frank. Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. The first item before you is the Romero Duplex.
Is there any way to turn up the microphones?
Is this better? Hello, can you hear me?
Better?
Is this okay?
Yes,
Okay.
better.
So the first item before you is the Romero Duplex, known as Planning and Zoning Permit number 17-500-14. The applicant's representative is in attendance this evening. I just want to provide a brief background as to how we got here tonight. On October 17th, just about 1 month ago, your commission reviewed Planning and Zoning Permit number 17-500-14 and expressed concerns about the project related to the compatibility of the proposed adaptive reuse, the lack of on-site and off-site parking, and also the justification for the requested reductions. At that meeting, the Planning Commission was unable to make the required findings to grant the planned residential use special use permit. The Planning Commission directed staff to return with a resolution for denial. So staff is here this evening with a resolution for denial of the project. Staff recommends that your commission find the project statutorily exempt from CEQA and approve the resolution denying the project. Note that the approval of the resolution actually denies the project.
Correct. Did the applicant want to speak? No? Okay. I'll open public comment on this item then. I have one speaker card, Pat Brown. Pat? Pat?
This property has been sitting there vacant for such a very, very long time. And I'm not sure that this is going to go, but it's better than just being a vacant lot. And
Pat?
if it's
Are you talking, I think you're talking about E3?
the Public Works integrated master plan?
No, we're on E1, which is
Oh,
the
I'm
duplex.
sorry.
That's okay.
I can't hear because you guys don't have your mics loud enough, so,
Well, I can't make it any, let me,
okay, well,
can you hear me now?
yeah.
We're on
let's-
E1,
Yeah,
and that's the converting an existing 2-story square foot medical commercial building
Right.
into a residential duplex.
yeah, and I'm really concerned about this project because of all of the cuts in everywhere from reduction in interior yard space, the reduction in the side yard setbacks, the relief from the garage parking, and relief from off-street visitors parking, and so I guess they want everybody to walk everywhere. A reduction in parking area landscape. I mean, the whole thing is just how can we cut, and you end up with nothing good in the end. I just, this is a fear I have of this project.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have no other speaker comments on this agenda item. Is there anyone else who wants to speak on this item? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public comment. Commissioners, this is an action to basically uphold our denial of this project from our last meeting. So do I have a motion?
Madam Chair,
It would be a motion to approve
I just had a quick question.
or deny.
I'm reading the recommendation, and it says that we recommended to find the denial, but it says approve the resolution for planning and zoning permit 17-500-14. Can you?
Yeah, this is to approve the recommendation to deny the project.
Okay. Okay, I just got a little confused. I'll move.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Chavez,
Second.
second by Dozier. Roll call.
Commissioner Chavez,
Aye.
Commissioner Dozier,
Aye.
Commissioner Meyer,
Aye.
Vice Chair
Wait,
Chua.
excuse me for interrupting the vote, but I want to make sure that those commissioners who were not present at the hearing on this matter are either not voting or making the affirmative statement that they reviewed the testimony, the video, and the documentation.
That's the correct move. Thank
Okay,
you.
so was everyone here when this project came before us? Everyone was here. Okay, just making sure.
We had the opportunity to review
I
the footage. I wasn't here at the meeting.
If,
Three of us weren't here at the meeting.
if you had reviewed the video and staff report and you're up to speed on what the planning commission did, then you can participate in the vote.
in the vote tonight.
Otherwise, you would abstain from the vote.
Okay.
Right.
Yes.
Oh, so what date was this? Because I know I was.
It was,
October 17th.
17th.
yeah, it was the 17th.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure I was not here.
It
No.
was Dozier, Sanchez, and Meyer that weren't here. It was just four of us that night.
That's right. So,
I'd like to change mine to abstain.
thank you.
Then I will second. I was here.
You were here. Okay, so we have a motion by Chavez, a second by Furing. Let's start the roll call over with the understanding of who can and cannot vote. All right, let's try it again.
Commissioner Chavez,
Yes.
Commissioner Fearing,
Yes.
Commissioner Dozier,
I abstain.
Commissioner Meyer,
Abstain.
Vice Chair Chua,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez,
I abstain.
Chair Frank.
Yes. Motion passes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move to item E2 on our agenda. This is a presentation on the Public Works Integrated Master Plan Project Programmatic Environmental Impact Report number 2019-01.
Good evening, Commissioner, Chair. We have a presentation this evening by our consultant, Steve Brown. In addition, we have the Assistant Public Works Director also here to give any remarks that you may, or respond to any questions you may have.
Okay.
We also have the city's consultant, Tracy Warner, with Corolla Consulting, who is also here to answer questions. And with that, I'll turn the presentation over to Steve Brown.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Brown.
Good evening. Is this on? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Again, my name's Steve Brown with SMB Environmental, and we did the developed the programmatic EIR on the Public Works Integrated Master Plan. And if you recall, I was here August 15th, where we had a public hearing during our 45-day public review period of the public draft EIR. And the purpose of today's meeting is to give you an update as to what has transpired since our August 15th date. We have received written comments on our public draft. We have prepared responses to those comments, and we have prepared what's called a final programmatic EIR for the project. These documents constitute the final document that would go to the City Council if it gets past this organ or body, that would be considered whether to approve the EIR and/or the programmatic Public Works Integrated Master Plan. To give you a little bit of background, I think I summarized most of this. We had a 45-day public review period pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act. Again, on August 15th, we opened it up for public hearing. We did not receive any oral comments at that time at our meeting. We did have some questions, minor issues, or not issues, but questions that the commissioners asked, and I think we provided answers satisfactorily. We did receive 4 public review or public comments from public agencies. The agencies which submitted written comments included the California Division of Safety of Dams, the Ventura County Air Pollution Control District, Ventura County Public Works Department, and the Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Agency. What I'd like to summarize, if I could, all the comments that we received were not very non-substantive in terms of where they would change the direction of the programmatic EIR and/or the Public Works Integrated Master Plan. Many of them were not technical, but editorial and update information. I'm going to go through each of their agencies' comments here in a minute. We provided comments that's incorporated into your package of the final EIR for you to review. And we invited each of those agencies pursuant to CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act, that we gave them 10 days, at least 10 days notice, so that they could read through our response to their comments, and invited them to this public hearing. So the first set of comments that we got was from the California Division of Safety of Dams. Basically, the comment letter requested some more information regarding a proposed stormwater detention facility that we had put in the programmatic, or not the programmatic, but the Public Works Integrated Master Plan. We explained that that stormwater detention basin project was one of those projects more at the concept level at this stage, and probably wouldn't be implemented until the next 10 or 15 years. So we don't have detailed designs or the kind of information that they were looking for at this particular time. Basically, we commented that we would, in the future, when these details are known, or even if the project moves forward, we would make sure that we coordinate with them to make sure that any detention basin that fits it within their requirements of oversight and regulatory authority, that we would coordinate with them. Again, none of their comments were substantive enough to require us to recirculate the public draft and or change the program or the Public Works Integrated Master Plan. Ventura County Air Pollution Control District, basically their comment letter was stating that they generally concurred with our findings and conclusions and our approach to the impact analysis, our mitigation measures. They did suggest that 1 or 2 of our tables had some slightly outdated air quality data for existing conditions, and we agreed with that. And as you'll see in Chapter 4 of the final programmatic EIR, that we updated those data points to reflect better as to what the current data is. again, those comments did not, were not substantive enough to change the programmatic EIR and/or the Public Works Integrated Master Plan. The last comment we received was from the Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Agency. They were just wanted to express their concerns that they are in charge of overseeing the groundwater and the groundwater basins, and anything that we do as part of the Public Works Integrated Master Plan would come under their jurisdiction, and we agreed with that, and we had did not have them listed as a permit or an authorization, so we updated that information for them, that we would get the proper permits and work with them. Again, none of the comments resulted in any substantive changes. And I think I missed one here. I apologize. The Ventura County Public Works Department, their main concern was anytime that we're doing road work or work in the roads, that county roads, that we could be subject to their approval, and we agreed with that, and we updated the table to reflect that, and that we would be working with them anytime that we're crossing or cutting through a Ventura County road. Again, none of them were substantive enough to require us to recirculate or change the EIR or the Public Works Integrated Master Plan. So again, nothing requires us to change anything in the final EIR or recirculate the public draft. And both the public draft and the final draft have been prepared in compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act and the CEQA guidelines. And our overall recommendation is to recommend that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution recommending the City Council approve the final EIR and the Public Works Integrated Master Plan. And with that, I will be happy to answer any questions if I can.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Commissioners, anybody have any questions or comments for this? Commissioner Chavez.
Thank you, Mr. Brown, for the presentation. How many of the proposed projects actually cross the county in regards to roads or any other jurisdiction?
I don't have that information right now. I think it's somewhat minimal, but we have thousands and thousands of miles of pipelines, and at the programmatic level, we didn't get down to the streets, or we have maps that have some of those, but I did not do a substantive counting.
Okay.
And sometimes those things may change and change over time, so.
Now, in regards to the DSOD, the Division of Safety of Dams, the third bullet point says that the city offered to work with them in the future of the project if it gets into their site. Now, do you have any idea from the top of your head that there could be a potential that they could be a partner in regulating?
They wouldn't necessarily be a partner. They're an oversight authority, and it depends on the size and the type of dam that you would construct. And a detention dam, it's more for flood control versus an impoundment for water supply. So it's not going to be full all the time, but they still have requirements. It can only be X number. If it goes beyond, and I forget, don't quote me on all the numbers, but if it's over 6 or 10 feet high, it gets into their jurisdiction, or if it encompasses X number of acres, it would come under their jurisdiction or permit authority.
Okay.
So they just look at, and we would need engineering design drawings to submit to them, and then they would review it from a geotechnical and safety of dam issues.
So it's just pretty much, if we stay below their height requirement,
and size requirement. Yeah, there's height and size, overall footprint of the project, and
all right.
They're basically just making sure that we don't create an unnecessary flood risk to downstream people.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Anyone else? Commissioner Meyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just more of a general question. I noticed, desalinization was considered a non-viable option for increasing the creation of potable water, usable water. I'm not as familiar with the current technology or status of that. I believe perhaps Norway is one country that does do desalinization on a large scale. Do you have any information about why it is that it's not a viable option?
Well, and I'll let Dean.
Chair, Commissioner, currently in the California climate right now, for a ocean desal, just the permit requirement, it may take a minimum of 10 years. So based on how we prepare this water projection as part of the master plan, it's easier to first plan on using all your resources, such as recycled water first, and using desal as your last alternative is because it takes that long just to get them. For example, the desal plant in San Diego, it took them 10 years just to get them and up and running.
So is your,
Thank you.
To further on that, the question is, are we in the process?
Noticing that it was considered a non-viable option
At this
to be a
point?
part of the master plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that answered it.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? I have a question. At last council meeting, there was discussion about prolonging the power plants in Oxnard, so for a 3-year extension. So would that impact any of the content of this EIR?
No, I don't believe so.
I'm thinking of air quality and...
Well, the Public Works Integrated Master Plan that is
Doesn't
primarily
deal with that.
does not deal
Right.
with that. The only power it's to operate water-related facilities, and so we're not doing
Well,
any of
it's
the.
water cooled, but well, no, it's, the old one was, but they're talking about not decommissioning it yet. Okay, so I guess the answer
Yeah.
is there's no impact.
There's no, this does not cover that. This
Okay.
covers water, recycled water, wastewater, and stormwater.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else? Okay,
Move the recommended action.
a motion by Chavez to, I'm sorry, council.
Are there any requests to speak on this, or?
No.
Okay.
I have no comment cards for this agenda item. If someone in the public would like to speak on this issue, now is the time. I see no one. I'll close public comment. I have a motion by Chavez to move the recommended action.
A
Second.
I have a second by Furing. Roll call.
Commissioner Chavez,
Aye.
Commissioner Fearing,
Yes.
Commissioner Dozier,
Yes.
Commissioner Meyer,
Yes.
Vice Chair Chua,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez,
Yes.
Chair Frank.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. We'll move to item E3. This is Planning and Zoning Permit Number 17-300-09. It's for a tentative parcel map and a tentative parcel map in order to secure a parcel map waiver. This is Mr. McLaren presenting.
Good evening, Commissioner. Good evening, Chair. So we have before you PZ 17-300-09. This is the Rusi property tentative parcel map waiver at 3501 South Saviors Road. The project description is a request to divide an existing 4.19 acre site that is commonly known as a swap meet into 2 different parcels. Parcel A would be a 3.14 acre lot that would retain an existing 16,600 square foot commercial building and the associated parking lot. And then parcel B would be a vacant 1.05 acre undeveloped lot. No development is proposed on either lot at this time. This has been filed by David Kesterson of Lauterbach and Associates. So I just put this in here. I know that our image, these maps are rather big, and the image isn't so great, but it kind of just gives you an overview of what actually your approval would be is for this tentative parcel map. This is the outline of the 4.19 acre site. And then here we have Saviors Road along this side, and along this side we have A Street. And then parcel A would be everything outside of this line, but within the border line. So this whole area is parcel A, and the existing building is here. And then parcel B is currently vacant, kind of asphalt paved, that's not in such great repair, and this would become parcel B. So the existing site, as I said, is a 16,600 square foot multi-tenant commercial building that's currently occupied by Lassen's Health Foods, a staffing company, a thrift store, and a salon. The surrounding uses, to the north over here we have Ralph's Grocery Store, which is also zone C2 with CPD split zoning. To the east, which would be across Saviors Boulevard, we have more C2 or general commercial. It's restaurants, retail, laundromat, used car lot. Then to the south, back in the distance, we have some single-family residences, R1. And then just immediately south along Saviors Road, it's C2 zoning, and there's a Chinese food restaurant immediately to the south of the property. And then to the west, back behind this parcel, is multi-unit apartments and single-family residences. It's RPD zoning and R1 zoning. Some background on the property. This property was approved as a supermarket back in 1959. Supermarket was built.
Which property?
So the entire 4.19 acre lot
Okay.
was approved. It had a grocery store on it and the rest of the building that still exists there today. Then in 1998, the grocery store became a indoor swap meet. In July 2005, there was a structure fire at that indoor grocery store, or at the indoor swap meet. And then in 2008, the building, the damage to the building, property owner decided to demolish that portion of the building, leaving the existing 16,600 square foot multi-tenant commercial building that is there, and then a large parking lot. And in the aerial views and things, you can still see the pad or where the old building used to be. That hasn't been improved or paved over, so it's still basically just a dirt area where the old building was removed. Under the general plan, it is a commercial general zoning or land use. Commercial zoning, general zoning allows retail uses, which this existing site is retail use, so it is consistent with the general plan. Under the zoning, it is general commercial with a portion of it at the back of the lot back here having a planned development. We're not sure. The record doesn't really indicate how that happened, but it was a long time ago, and it's all in our paper files. But they aren't proposing to change that zoning. The zoning would still be split zoning as a commercial PD in that one portion of it, and the rest of it still C2 general commercial. Again, that zoning is consistent with what's going on the property as it exists today, and since there's no proposed development, this is consistent with the zoning. So this is their site plan to show how the pad is going to be broken up. Again, here's the existing commercial building, 16,600 square feet. This would be the lot that is being broken out of this property. There are currently, this is the circulation pattern as it exists today, and that there is actually a reciprocal access easement agreement that goes from a driveway off of A Street through the lot here and into behind the Ralphs this way and in front of the Ralphs this way. That cross-lot agreement also is part of the reciprocal access agreement. There is a turnoff of Savior Road into this driveway here, and then there's immediate turn that also would take you into the Ralph's grocery store. So there's also still reciprocal access there. This is an existing access point also. There's another driveway here, and their freestanding sign is here. This is, well, I'll get to it later, but under conditions, this would be reserved. This restaurant has a reciprocal access easement agreement from this driveway so that they can access the parking that was required for the restaurant that's along this area here. So there are 37 conditions of approval on this project. Most of them are standard, but these are some of the ones that I wanted to highlight. As a condition of approval for this site, we would require that the parcel A, the larger of the two parcels, get an upgrade to its lighting so that it's got improved lighting throughout the parking lot. And then when parcel B is developed with some future point, which there's nothing proposed currently, that site would also then get upgraded. Condition 11 is requiring some on-site improvements so that the 16,600 square foot building comes up to more current standards. That building would require 67 parking spaces, so we're asking them to restripe 67 parking spaces, 3 of them being ADA compliant and 1 being van accessible. Creating a motorcycle pad, which is also a requirement that's got the appropriate markings that show that it's a motorcycle pad. Creating the required loading zones for a commercial building of this size. Creating clearly delineated ADA compliant paths both from A Street and from Saviors Road to get to the front of the shopping center. Making the appropriate ramps up to the stepped up sidewalk that's in front of the commercial building with all the truncated domes and things like that that would be required. And then in order to meet the pedestrian and bicycle master plan, provide 8 bicycle parking spaces short-term and 2 long-term bicycle parking spaces. Condition 12 would require that all of the existing access and parking agreements that would remain in full force and effect between the lot to the north, the lot to the south, and on this lot. And then condition 13 would require a new access agreement so that the 2 parcel A and parcel B would still be able to share the parking and access. And those would have to be reviewed by our city attorney to make sure that we are okay with the agreements that are put together. And then condition 17 would be to require them to install a trash enclosure. There's not currently a trash enclosure for the existing commercial building. We would require that they put that trash enclosure in for the existing commercial building. This project is exempt under CEQA because it is a minor land division in an urbanized area with 4 or fewer parcels. So a notice of exemption will be filed. And our recommendation is that the Planning Commission approve a resolution for a parcel map waiver subject to certain findings and conditions.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Chavez.
Thank you, Mr. McLaren. Can you just tell me what is the purpose of dividing this 4.19 parcel into 2 separate ones?
This is something that, the Subdivision Map Act allows somebody to break up a parcel of this size in order to be able to sell it off. You can't sell a property without subdividing it first. So this would allow the owner to be able to sell off that portion of this parcel to a different developer. Or they could just make it to where it becomes a cleaner lease for purposes of getting loans and things like that for possible future development on the property.
Okay, so it's just for sales purposes and managing of the property size.
Well, it's not exclusive. That's not the
If staff could
exclusive
help,
answer.
that actually might be a question that's almost better directed at the applicant team, and they are here in the room, but it could be for financial purposes as well. If someone wishes to develop it, it just opens up doors essentially for something else to occur on this particular piece of property.
Okay. What are because of this property has been vacant, it's an empty lot at this point after the demolition of the swap meet building, what are the liabilities that the property owner has in regards to, on the weekends, they use it pretty much as a car wash place. Is there any consequences to the property owner for having this vacant lot and people just using it for any uses?
Well, anybody who's going to use this lot for any purpose other than basically a parking lot would have to go through a temporary use permit, or they'd be in violation of city code.
Yeah.
So you're not allowed to just set up a car wash on the lot. You're not allowed to put a Christmas tree lot on there without coming in and getting a temporary use permit. So those people who come in for temporary use permits, we make sure that they get, they've gone to risk management and they have all the appropriate liability insurance before they're issued that temporary use permit. So that is part of the process of allowing somebody to do something on this lot other than the use that's already approved, which is at this point parking and the retail use that exists.
Okay.
And the car washes that go on
Yes.
all the time there.
I just
Neighbors, yeah.
was over there 2 weeks ago, and there was at least a good like dozen different people
Washing
cars. And
Nobody does anything.
exactly. Well, there's no code compliance on the weekends, so it makes it harder. So, in regards to the history of this site, it was first approved as a supermarket back in late 50s. And then it was then approved to be an indoor swap meet, and then the structure fire. Now, after the structure fire, were the applicant forced to demolish the building, or they did it on their own?
Well, the applicant asked to be able to rebuild or to repair the existing building and reopen the swap meet, but there had been additional laws passed in Oxnard that prevented swap meets from being able to be opened. So at that point, he was denied, I believe on 2 occasions actually, to be able to reopen the swap meet, and at that point chose to demolish the building.
Now, the current building that is utilized by Lassen's, a staffing place, you know, the multi, is there any, was there any structure damage caused by that fire that would have, you know?
Before the building department would have had to, as part of the inspection process for a fire, they have to go in and they have to do an evaluation of the structure that has been damaged and make a determination as to whether or not it's a complete loss and what percentage of loss it is. And in that section of the building, they would have determined that there was no damage or that the damage was repairable and the repairs would have been made under a building permit, which there was no building permit for repairs, so I don't believe that there was any damage to that portion of the building.
Now, with the conditions of approval, I might have overmissed it, or maybe it wasn't in there. Is there any requirement for the conditions to make improvements to the existing commercial building that's on site?
The subdivision at this point doesn't really rise to a level of development to where we could start asking for those kind of additional conditions.
Right.
Okay.
So it really doesn't rise to a level where we could ask for additional improvements.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. McLaren, what, for the benefit, what does it mean to have a parcel map waiver?
I can, actually, I got this in the staff report. A parcel map waiver is something that is, if our code, which our code does allow, if our code allows, the council has gone ahead and allowed for something where it is less than a commercial property, less than 4 parcels that has all the utilities and services that go to it. In that case, it is allowed to be waived because it's a simplification process, so it's kind of a streamlining effort. And then at this point, beyond this level, the Planning Commission, it doesn't go on to City Council for what would typically be a final map. Instead, it's actually just going to go on to our contract surveyor, who will make sure that all the numbers match and the legal descriptions are accurate and correct. And then at that point, a certificate of approval will be filed with the county, and this will become a legal subdivision at that point.
And all further development or projects that come forward to be placed on this has a parcel map waiver goes to the planning director for approval. Is that right?
No,
Okay.
they would still, it depends on the project that's proposed for it.
Okay.
As to whether or not it would rise to the level of an SUP or development design review.
Exactly. Okay. Okay. Now, I would like you, okay. I understand that the history of these parcels is unknown to you because it's in your paper files, but the history of this parcel and how it came to be is very well known to the people who live in this neighborhood, very well known. And they fought for years over the original subdivision that created this parcel, which was the north part, I think the north parcel of 2 parcels that were divided, which resulted in the Ralphs being placed on one and this one being the remnant, which is now being subdivided. This is over 4 acres, the largest parcel down in the South Oxnard area right now. And so when Ms. Godwin called me and asked me, she said she drove by there, there's nothing posted about this parcel, which would have invited the neighbors to maybe share their knowledge with you. And I see in the staff report that there was no community workshop. There was no notice sent to anybody in the neighborhood, who are very, very, very concerned about what's going in on this parcel. And that that this disturbs me a great deal. I really think that to call it a simple lot split is really simplifying it. Technically it is, but the impact to the neighborhood could be very significant given the size of this land and its location, and the need for certain things in South Oxnard, as well as satisfying state requirements for development. And you know I'm speaking of housing. So I read the staff report, and I understand that's why there was absolutely zero outreach to anyone in that neighborhood. The rumor that was shared with me was that a car wash was planned, a real car wash was planned on one of the parcels, and that the city, with vendors or whomever else they're contemplating bringing in, was going to create a Zocalo at that location for South Oxnard to enjoy. Then I listened to City Council. I watched City Council on Tuesday, and the Zocalo came up again in Council. So, you know, to say there's no proposed development planned at this time, it may not be in a formal plan, but there's certainly some discussion out there taking place about potential uses for this, and the neighborhood is very, 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 very concerned. And I would like to see, personally, I would like to see this come back, and I'm bringing it up before we, get into anything else on this. I would like to see this come back after there's been a community workshop. I really think that's needed in this neighborhood, especially with a parcel this size. And they can give you the history of what happened here. They're also concerned about A Street, something about A Street. I didn't understand all the details. But all this is doing is creating a lot of distrust. Okay, again, lack of transparency. I think it would be a simple thing to put this out for community input and bring it back. And I don't know, what are your posting requirements for this? And bring it back, 60 days, something like that. Is it feasible?
Well, Chair Frank, let's go ahead and do a couple things. Let's continue to hear questions from the Planning Commission, because that's where we're at right now.
I definitely.
So, and we also have the applicant here to help engage us with that discussion.
Okay.
So that's something to do.
Okay, that's fine. I'll go ahead and do that.
A quick response in terms of community workshops.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a new face here, trying to get used to the Oxnard way of doing things, and one of the things that I've been trying to understand is what are the rules in terms of when community workshops are done and when
I know it's not required. I read it. I know it's not required, but I think it's good citizenry to allow the people who live there to have some input on potential, especially when very dense housing is being forced down their throats with density bonuses and lack of open space. Here is a 4-acre parcel that is perfectly poised to accommodate some of the housing needs that Oxnard has.
And I'm not disagreeing with any of those. I'm bringing up the community workshop discussion, though, because that's something that we intend to eventually bring back to the Planning Commission, and eventually City Council to formalize how the community workshops noticing
Okay, well,
works.
until then,
Understood. With the applicant team being here, though, we have the ability to hear from them directly of what they are thinking in terms of future development. There isn't a hard requirement for parcel maps to be adjoined with development, so
know.
we could engage in that conversation.
I understand. Okay, that's all I have to say. I think, I don't like it. Okay. Commissioners, any questions of staff? Commissioner Chua.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, I just, is there a need for notification for this type of application?
There is, and we did send out public noticing, both the mail notice as well as the posting on site for this particular meeting.
So,
For this meeting?
For this meeting.
Okay.
Yes, we have the photographs from the sign posting company that shows that when they posted the sign, and we also have I have it right here, actually, the notification in Vita paper.
Yeah, that's where they saw it. That's where the neighbors saw it, was
And then the
Vita.
mailings were also done as well.
Yeah,
Okay,
only
so
within 300
But
feet.
the mailings are only, on a hearing like this, it's only a 300-foot radius.
That's what right.
okay, so we follow the municipal code. Okay, next question. The 1 acre lot. What's a typical project commercial project that can be put on a 1 acre lot? Just give me an example, just picking your brain, because here's the thing, and the commissioners here know that I hate giving waivers if there's no justification. Now, if the applicants are thinking of a project in concept in mind, would it fit in a 1 acre lot? I know that we don't have to, we're not required to get this, but I'm just trying to get a heads up of what can be built in a 1 acre commercial lot.
Right, so, in the originally when we saw this parcel map, the applicant was proposing this being subdivided into 4 lots also.
Right, right.
In looking at that, we saw that the way they were dividing it up was making it to where we didn't feel as though the lots could really be developed at all in that way. It also made it was to where utility access and vehicle access and circulation was going to become problematic with the way they were proposing it. And so we basically said, come back with something else, and we asked that they come back with some sort of development. Instead, they came back with this proposal. On a 1 acre lot, we have commercial lots that are 1 acre that have a small retail strip mall on them. That's basically what you would get on this, is something like that.
Just what South Oxnard needs.
Well, and it is zoned commercially. And
Yeah.
it also does have the all affordable housing overlay on it as well, though. So it is open to, a developer coming in and providing a mixed-use housing on here, but we don't have a developer who has offered the property owner, to buy them out and be able to build that development. So, we are stuck with the developments that are proposed, and we then have to evaluate them based on the code and
Right.
bring that before you, and that's what we've done here.
Right, I understand that, it meets code, so I'm just wondering.
If I could help here, I think what might help just in terms of round numbers, the general plan designation on this one is commercial general, and commercial general has a Florida area ratio built into it, which is 0.35. What that means
0.35.
is for every, essentially it's a 35% lot coverage is what we'd be looking at, or if it's a single-story building. When you do the math, the 1.05 acres, it's essentially a 16,000 square foot building.
Building, yeah.
And the 16,000 square foot building would be the maximum potential. But then we started
Adding the parking.
And other
Landscape,
things.
yeah.
And seeing what would occur as a development would be proposed. At this point in time, it would be speculative of us to really start jumping ahead to see what would they actually be coming through with. But 16,000 square feet essentially would be the maximum potential in
Okay,
terms
so
of
it's a
square footage.
decent sized property.
Correct, and that's if it comes in as a commercial project.
Right.
There is an ability to do housing on the site as well, and then you'd have to go ahead and comply with the housing regulations. But again, I don't want to get into the whole world of speculative
That's fine.
development.
Other question is the little strip of split zoning at the rear of the property. In case, because I'm thinking in the future here, that the applicant, are there conflicting development standards between a CPD and a commercial zoned property, which is this one? This is commercial general, right? Along, like you said, commercial general?
Commercial general is the general plan, and
No, I'm not talking about I'm sorry, I'm now
from
referring to
zoning?
parcel A.
yeah, a commercial general C2 with the all affordable housing opportunity.
Right,
overlay.
and then the little strip of the back, isn't that the split zoning of the back?
A commercial plan development along the
Right,
back.
is
That's
there a development conflict between those two zonings? Because let's say, which one is more restrictive?
Plan development.
The CPD or?
So a PD is just an overlay.
Right.
Where the plan development has limited what zoning or what can be done within that PD strip.
That's exactly right, and that's the history of this parcel. And it was a PD, okay, the whole thing. So the history on this parcel is very important because the people who live there were promised certain things, okay, including Save-On. That's how far back it goes, when it was still Save-On. Remember Save-On drugstores?
I do.
Yeah, okay. So there's significant history on this land and how that PD got diminished. And the neighbors want to tell you about it, and they want it taken into account, and they'd really like a community workshop that would help all of us, because it's part of the history here. And yeah, they were promised things there when it was originally subdivided.
So the only reason why I'm asking is that when you go in and evaluate a project and they have a split zoning, sometimes it creates a problem. So hopefully we don't have that issue.
It can create an issue. The way that I've always approached that throughout my career is to follow the literal line, if you will, of where the zones are designated.
Right.
So we would have to go through that evaluation when it comes through.
So we're not planning to clean it up like,
There is no zone change that's currently proposed with this, and it wasn't included within the general plan
Okay.
consistency zone change that we recently processed.
Okay.
Yeah, but if I'm understanding what's before us, if we approve this and council approves this, it's going to become a parcel, there's going to be a parcel map waiver.
What's before us is only for a parcel map waiver. There's no change to the zone that's being proposed at this point in time, meaning that if this parcel map is approved through the waiver process by the Planning Commission, which means it does not go to council, this would essentially be the last stop.
That's right, it would be done.
Correct, it would be done here, and then any future application that would come in would need to comply with the split zoning on the property. If an
And that would be
applicant-
subject to the planning director, right?
Can I point out that this slide is that this dotted line represents the split zoning. So this is again A Street, and everything to the west of this dotted line is the CPD, and then everything to the east of this is just C2, all affordable. And so the lot that's being proposed has no effect whatsoever, and it does not even cross
Right.
over the zone.
Chua established that, yeah.
Right. My concern is that if somebody develops A, I don't care about B at this point, and then you have that pretty wide, significant area of CPD on a C, that my question is, would there be a conflict between the development standards between CPD and CG in general? So if that's the case, I mean, are they gonna try to clean this up? Establish a single zoning instead of split zoning? Because that's gonna become a problem.
If it is determined to, whomever develops parcel A in the future would need to comply with whatever standards are in the are in place, which would be the split zoning today.
Yeah, yeah.
If that's determined to be problematic, then a developer would have a choice to either acknowledge and work with the constraint or file a zone change and try to go through it
Okay.
at that point in time to clean it up. A zone change is not something that's done by the director. That would be through the planning commission, through the city council to change the zoning on the property.
Right.
So there is a methodical process to go and engage in that sort of cleanup. But any development that does not propose a zone change would simply need to comply with the rules and regulations, and the permit type would dictate which body it goes through.
Okay.
So,
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Commissioner Sanchez.
Yes, thank you very much for your report. Just had a few questions concerning, you know, when I first read it, and you know what this parcel has been through the years. It's pretty much been retail, so I thought this is going to be retail, you know, because you already have the store, and then you know what's been happening now as of late is that South Oxnard is getting revitalized finally after all these years. You know, it's happening. I mean, we just approved something maybe 6 months ago, maybe less, to revitalize a shopping center that's over there on Pleasant Valley and Saviors, and there's a lot of revitalizing and new projects beyond that. So I thought this was going to be a little bit simpler than the conversation is going. I was thinking one way or another they could get retail of some sort from a. We don't have Save-On anymore, but we have Rite Aids, we have the CVS, things like that. I mean, there's amenities that people still need over there that they don't get enough of, and I was thinking this would just revitalize itself by, you know, the needs that are, especially past Channel Islands Boulevard, because there's a lot of people moving in there, more development coming in. They're going to need a lot of services and amenities.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much. Does the applicant want to say something?
Mr. Rusi will speak.
My name is Ralph Rusi, 2130 Greencastle Way, Oxnard. And I've lived here all my life. And I've owned the property since the 1950s. And to correct one statement I've heard here, there has been no rezoning of that property in the last 50 or 60 years.
Right.
So I don't understand why somebody says they were fighting over changing the zoning. Now, I'm sitting in the back. I don't hear very well. I'm getting a little older, so that's what I thought I heard. So, I mean, it's zoned what it's been zoned. When we, I've heard the deal about Save-On, and architect is the one that brought it up when people thought they were promised a Save-On. I really wanted a Save-On. I negotiated for months with a Save-On. Something happened. Albertsons bought Save-On and says, you're going into our store in the Twin Centers, which is what the big centers were called then. What could I do? Nothing. So we built the Ralphs. The zoning on that property is the same. Same on the front, same on the back. At that time, the attitude was to treat it all as C2, whether it was part C2 or part CPD. So it was built. Part of my agreement with Ralph's is to try and get a drugstore. I've spent 20 years trying to get a drugstore. Haven't been successful, but we've dealt with Save-On originally. Another one that is no longer around, got bought by somebody else. So we're trying to get something going there. We've talked to car washes. We've talked to banks. We've talked to fast foods. We haven't made a deal with anyone. So something else that I heard or thought I heard was some rumor of something happening there that I don't understand what it is. So Zola?
A Zocalo.
I don't know what that is.
Okay, it's like a plaza, like an outdoor plaza. And they have different food vendors and arts and crafts and musicians and, yeah, kind of like an Olvera Street.
Well, I don't know what that, I don't have a plan for that, but.
Are you planning on developing this yourself, or is it your thought to get rid of it?
I started on this in 2017, and here I am.
Yeah.
Just a couple of years older.
So what's the plan for?
Well, the plan is to try and get something going there. We'd like to, we have a lot of balls in the air. We own the Ralphs. We've negotiated with the Ralphs to convert that to a food for less. At current time, we can't find anybody with Ralphs that we can even discuss it with. So.
What about this 1 acre parcel, like Vice Chair Chua says? What are you thinking about for that?
We wanted 4.
Right.
Because financing, property taxes, all of these things are determined by what parcel they're sitting on. So it makes it easier to deal with tenants. We don't plan to sell the property. We are hoping to either ground lease it or find somebody that we would be willing to bill for. Preferably it's been to ground lease, and it's taking so long, I think that's probably all I'm up to. So that's where we are.
So I'm going to jump in if you don't mind, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Chavez.
Any questions, other questions that I can
Commissioner
answer?
Chavez has some questions for you.
Thank you.
So thank you for being here tonight so that you can, answer these questions. Now, your last comment said that you do not plan on selling the property, so you plan on keeping the property and you want somebody to come in and develop on it, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you said that you have a lot of talks with fast food, grocery stores, drugstores, all these array of different services. Has any of them actually came to you and say, hey, this is our idea, what do you think about it?
Well, several of them have, but, we just haven't gotten to the point of economics. Part of the economics is, what are we required to do with the property we're not developing? We now have conditions that we can price out and determine the feasibility of going from here.
Now, you've owned this property since the late 50s. Have you done any community outreach to the residents in the area as far as trying to maybe get a few ideas? I know it's a little extreme because that's, but as a sign of good faith to the community.
Well, every time that we've done a development, it's gone before, what do you call it, the community gathering that gets to give comments. I mean, we did that with, I think, the Ralphs. We did that, I know, with the Kentucky Fried Chicken.
But you personally have not taken a team to actually meet with the community. It's only been
Taking a team?
Well,
I mean, me?
If it's just you, then it's just you. I commend you for that. But I guess what I'm trying to get to is the chair brought up good points in regards to the community and what they were sold on, different ideas in South Oxnard. I was born and raised in South Oxnard, so this is my community. And when I listened to a lot of the community members in that area, they were told how certain parcels were going to be developed. So I'm just trying to figure out if you, outside of the city, have actually gone and spoken with the community to determine what should or could benefit the community on this property.
Well, I did attend the last meeting that they had of the neighborhood council,
Okay.
and it was rough. I got there late, couldn't find a parking place, had to walk 3 blocks, stood up against the wall, there weren't any seats, sat there for 2+ hours and listened to everybody complain. And I went actually because I thought the city might present something that was happening in the neighborhood. But the city informed me that that was not their meeting, it was the neighborhood council's meeting, and that's the way it went.
Are you considering any residential development on any of these 2 parcels?
Not at this time.
Not this time. So you're only looking for retail, at this commercial uses.
I look at it like we own 8 acres.
Mm-hmm.
So it should all go the same way. So it either continues to go commercial, or you get rid of Ralph's, you get rid of Kentucky Fried Chicken, and you get rid of our other little stores, and you go residential. I just don't see any other way. I mean, I've seen these, some of them like on Oxnard Boulevard, but it scares me. I'm afraid to try and do something like that.
Again, I appreciate you being here, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions?
Yes.
Anybody?
Commissioner Sanchez has some questions for you.
Okay,
Hello, Mr. Reason. How are you, sir?
I'm good.
Good. Good to see you. And appreciate so it's always appreciated when we have, the actual person that's bringing the project forward, such as yourself, as the owner of the property and the owner of the retail establishments that are there and what have you. To me, I've seen that the best building out of that, of what's there is retail or something like that, because I don't believe there's enough retail in South Oxnard. There's need for more, because of the fact that South Oxnard is growing. There's a lot of developments coming in that area, and there's needs for jobs, and anything you build in there is going to create jobs, and to me, that's what I always see as an important thing. Somebody who's trying to get a property to be, productive, will create jobs in whatever it is you do. So, if we would sure like to be supportive in whatever you do, because it is a positive for the community to have amenities and to have jobs and those sort of things. So hopefully, you can get this property developed and productive.
Well, it's been sitting there a while. But hope springs eternal.
Do you know
We still
why?
have some.
Do you know why it still has the planned development zoning on that portion of the property?
The 60-foot along
Yes.
A Street,
Yes.
it was there originally. I think the street was part of it. We subdivided Tract 1272 many years ago, and that would have been Bryce Canyon and A Street to connect with the old Oxnard Estates tract. And you talk about living in the neighborhood. My first home was at Yucca and South G, 3631 South G. So we lived there for 7 years. When we were first married, bought the last house in the tract. And then I bought a bigger house with a bigger mortgage and wondered why. Any other questions?
Any other questions, Commissioner Dozier? I see you moving.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just more a general comment. I just wanted to thank the applicant for coming, participating, and letting us also know that you are also a member of the community long-term. And where this property is, the community is actively involved. And I'm personally, I'm pleased to hear that you have gone to some of the meetings that the community has, and it's obvious that there's, regardless of what goes on this parcel, there's going to be a lot of community involvement. That being said, I see that the staff has followed all the existing rules. I appreciate the fact that staff is considering reviewing how we interact with the residents so that we can get more involvement. But I think that there's going to be involvement regardless of what gets developed there, and that if this makes the development process...
We're not deliberating.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. I have no speaker cards on this item. Is there? Thank you. Okay. I have one speaker. Actually, I have two from Ms. Brown. One says you're for, and the other one says you're against, and they're both on the same item. It doesn't matter. Come forward, please, Ms. Brown.
This property has been vacant for so long. I would, maybe 15 years, maybe? It just seems like it's been forever, okay? To the point where it's a very big negative. However, if they don't propose anything right now and they come up with something later, the neighborhood really needs to have a say on this that's there, that it isn't my neighborhood, but they need to have a say before this goes much further. And they need to actually express their true feelings on it rather than to just try to be nice and smile. They need to really, because this is something that they're going to live with, okay? What we really need is some low-income housing. That's what we really need. There could be businesses on the ground floor, and then like we're going to do on Oxnard Boulevard in downtown, and then the housing above for maybe 2 floors up, because we really need the housing, and I can understand. From what I understand, property values that are used for business are far more valuable than property for housing. And if that's the case, then fine. We'll build the businesses on the ground floor and we'll build the housing above. And then we cover both bases. Could we possibly consider that? But these people got to go to this neighborhood. They got to have some real meetings, because this is an eyesore that's been there for so many years, and then to have it suddenly, somebody comes in and waves a wand and puts in something new without letting them know, they're not going to be happy about this at all. And so I'm saying, yeah, it's an eyesore. Why have you left it this way for so long? You basically have been a negative to the city rather than a positive. I mean, it's not just a nothing, it's a negative. So I just wanted to let you know that, because a lot of people don't think about these kinds of things. You know, they really don't. They think of what they need or what they want and, you know, forget the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. That was the only speaker, well, those were the only speaker cards that I had. if anyone else wants to speak on this item, now is the time. Okay, I see nobody. I'll close public comment, and we'll.
Chair Frank, if staff may, just in terms of opportunities for future outreach, since that seems to be coming up a little bit, just to remind the Planning Commission of what our process is, if there was a building that was proposed to be here, that would automatically trigger the need to go through a community workshop. What we're asking to do today is essentially carve out two different parcels. The C2 zone that we have on the majority of these properties today could allow an additional building to be constructed with or without the creation of a new parcel. But creation of the new parcel allows financial opportunities, financing opportunities, if you will, for future development. Given the size of the parcels that we have, effectively a 1 acre and a 3 acre parcel, if a proposal would come forward and a building was shared with the community, and there was through a community workshop process, there was a desire for something to be changed that maybe didn't quite fit on this parcel, it wouldn't limit a future applicant to go through a lot line adjustment or something else in the future to modify these lot lines in some way. I know those are a lot of words, but what I'm essentially getting at is any action tonight is not going to take the public out of any future engagement with any future development that would happen out here.
Unless it's just another simple lot split, just another acre to divvy it up and another acre to divvy it up so that, and I understand, so the gentleman can sell it off and maybe someone come in and buy he doesn't want to sell. You can tell it's his legacy, but you know, it's the depletion of a huge in housing stock land. There's a big parcel that, in my view, would preclude street-to-street development. It would be another L-shaped development like we did behind the Amar Market, that they had to go through architectural contortions to get it to fit around the Amar Ranch Market when they put in the housing there. That's, I think, finished now. Almost finished. Yeah, so it allows for this parcel, and if this and development of a 1 acre parcel, it's much more economically feasible. It can be sold, it can be marketed separately. He can retain the rest, but it's got an AHOP overlay to it that's very valuable in our numbers to the state. And to me, chopping this up depletes or diminishes the value for that use as a standalone development that could have retail components to it, like Wagon Wheel. That's just my take. And the neighborhood is very, very concerned about what's going on in this lot, and they have experience with this neighbor, and they've lived there a long time. So, you know, going to a neighborhood council meeting is one thing, but it was not on their agenda, because neighborhood councils make their own agenda for their meetings. A community workshop is something that the city brings to the neighborhood when they understand there's neighborhood interest or activism. This is one of the most active neighborhood councils that there is, or neighborhoods there is, in South Oxnard, and been protecting and looking after South Oxnard forever. So that's my take. It may not be a requirement, but as Vice Chair Chuis, or maybe it was Chavez, talked about being a good neighbor, you know. So that's the only reason I bring it up. Going by the law, you know, I'm a lawyer, I go by the rules, but every now and then there's some discretion, because otherwise we would just put the facts into a computer and push the button and the answer would come out if we had no human discretion. So anyway, thank you. Commissioners, are you ready to begin deliberation? Commissioner Chavez?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with many of the comments that you and the Vice Chair made in regards to this project. As someone that grew up in South Oxnard, I can honestly say that there is a lack of services provided to the public in that area, in that portion of the city. Many of them are required to go to the north end to do all their shopping. I agree with you, Madam Chair, in regards to the housing inventory. I also agree with the housing project near Amar Ranch, which was a very odd shape, and I remember that council meeting pretty much saying it was ridiculous, but it was better than having a vacant lot.
They did it.
They fit it.
Yeah.
You know, I was very surprised based off of the number of units that they wanted to have and all the amenities. It was a very strange thing, but they did it. In regards to, and honestly, I can respect your legacy, sir. I can totally respect it. This is a property that you held on to for a number of decades. And it's from your comments is that you are really working right now to try to find something to be put in there. It sounds more like you want a drugstore to be put in there. Save-On, I remember Save-On. I'm not that young, but I remember it. But in regards to this being split, when I first read it, I wasn't in favor of that. I did not see a purpose for it. I see complications with splitting this parcel up. I understand what our development manager was saying in regards to not blocking out the community, but this is a community that has been pushed to the side for a number of years. And the Madam Chair is correct in regards to the neighborhood council that this is not only the council, but a group of residents that don't live in this area, but really have an interest in what goes on along Saviors Road. Unfortunately, at this time, I will not be able to support this proposal. Thank you.
Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'd like to thank staff and the applicant and everyone that's participated in this process. As already stated, this parcel of land is in a community that is very active. However, my position is it is very difficult for the city to encourage development on the south side. It's always challenging. So when opportunities arise where we can encourage and make development on the south side more attractive, I'm in support of that. I feel that staff has followed all the procedures that are currently on the books, and that being said, I also acknowledge that staff has said that they intend to improve their community outreach in the future. That being said, I think that the staff recommendation will make this use of land more attractive to developers. So at this time, I can support staff's recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Fearing, are you ready to?
No, I can't support the recommendation. I think the subdivision of this lot would be detrimental to its future commercial use. But thank you very much for the report.
Thank you. Commissioner Meyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Maybe perhaps questions. As I'm looking at the proposal, I'm wondering, obviously we have the right to vote as we see fit regarding the proposal. As far as the property owners' rights and their and given the efforts that have been made so far by the property owner or lack of thereof by the property owner, the city, et cetera, I guess I'm concerned about a position of denial of this in the absence of any other alternative or
Yeah.
proposal to support something different in that?
Well, the problem is there's no proposed development to go along with this. So what you're doing is a lot split, reducing a 4-acre parcel, that's an intact parcel with existing land use on it, and now taking out a quarter of it for his ability to sell it, leaving a contorted piece of property, just like council rejected his attempt to break it up into 4 lots. If you, in the staff report, they give the history of that, where he tried to break it up into 4 lots, and they said the shapes and everything were so contorted that they couldn't see how it would develop out. So that's kind of my view as well, along with Commissioner Feuring's idea that, and Commissioner Chavez, that it's leaving an L-shaped parcel on a main arterial road. You know, this isn't off in a residential area. This is a main drag that probably could use the whole solid front for future uses. In other words, to me, it's a diminishing return by taking it out. You're depleting the value of the entire parcel. But from what you've said, I see your point. But we have no proposed project to evaluate. But the future will be limited to a 1-acre parcel and then an L-shaped parcel as far as future development.
Gotcha. So,
That's my understanding.
right, on the one side, there's my concern that for the landowner,
Who bought the property in its existing zoning and now is trying to change it. Or-
right, and
Well, not
apparently
change the zoning, he's changing the lot line.
changing the lot line, and apparently there's been a struggle to find viable alternatives to improve upon that property and to create revenue.
There's a reason for that, and if there was a community outreach, that would come to the front.
Gotcha. So,
They can't find it because it's in their paper files. There are reasons.
I see. So is there, I guess what I'd want to see is that
And the
rather than just a pure denial that
And the
we're.
city, though, has included this parcel in their AHOP numbers, that it's got the AHOP overlay for all affordable housing.
Meaning mixed use?
No, meaning all affordable housing that's required by the state. On our housing element numbers that get reported to the state, the city of Oxnard has included this parcel. Remember, we had to go through and identify all the parcels in Oxnard. We had that appendix. Were you on here?
I probably wasn't on count.
Okay, well.
I've seen the
as
general
part of the
plan for that. But.
Yeah, it's the housing element of the general plan. And so we had to go through, and they did an inventory of all the parcels in the city of Oxnard and identified which ones would be amenable to AHOP development. And those numbers had to go to the state, so the state would back off from Oxnard and hold up our park funding and all of this business. So that was kind of the only thing the city could do, given that it's in private hands. You know, they can't eminent domain it or anything, they can't take it. But they identified it if there was an opportunity for a developer to come through, there it is.
But the city cannot force them
Right,
to
to
put
develop
up,
that housing, correct.
as a, low-income housing.
Right, but that's what I'm saying, that was all the city could do, is designate it as a AHOP potential.
Okay, and does that AHOP, does that provide for the possibility of mixed-use development?
I'm sure it does.
I don't know if
It is.
staff.
I mean, it's zoned for it.
It does.
Great, okay,
Yeah, it's zoned already for it. The
gotcha.
element would be all affordable.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, so that helps. My feeling is if the city and residents have an interest in a particular direction that property should go, then I'd want to see where the support and the assistance to the landowner would come in to say, let's make this work.
That's why we need a community workshop.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Just my take. Okay. Commissioner Sanchez?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
All righty. Well, I want to be an optimist on this, and I'm thinking that one way or another, if we give this a okay, as the staff recommended, that it will succeed. That's my opinion. So that, there's so many possibilities in that property, but mostly I believe it should be retail in there. There's not enough retail in Oxnard, South Oxnard. And I believe with strategy of trying to get tenants and building maybe in a different configuration, it'll work. But I'm going to go ahead and support this because I believe we do need the retail that is lacking over there, as well as jobs. Thank you.
Vice Chair Chua.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, okay. One of the concerns that the chair has is leaving an odd-shaped lot. So if this were subdivided, and I know the answer, but I just want to clarify this. There is an opportunity to do a lot line adjustment to make this lot push through, right? Make it a triangle or a rectangle, a square or a rectangle?
That's
all the way down to A Street, correct?
That's correct. Any action on this today does not lock in stone the parcel lines. A lot line adjustment could be processed in the future. That's quite possible. A lot merger could also happen in the future.
Right. And there's concern about the community, about certain uses that's acceptable to the community or not. And that is the process where we go through a community workshop when a development is coming in. As you pointed out, a building being proposed. So at this point, this is just a subdivision. And our purview here is to just look at whether it complies with the codes. And are there any black and white or gray area in a subdivision?
We look at parcels to see if it's compliant with things like minimum lot sizes, widths, certain standards like that.
So that's objective?
There are objective standards baked into the municipal code. This current proposal is consistent with those objective standards.
If I could jump in, though, I think it's important to say that the Planning Commission is not required to rubber stamp a subdivision or a parcel map. While I clearly agree with our planning manager, this does meet our requirements, the Planning Commission has the ability, if you want to make those findings, to determine that this is not the best subdivision of this property, and some of the issues which are raised by the chair about the configuration, the L-shaped, if you believe that is an issue, you do have the right to say this is not the right subdivision of this property at this time.
That's what I would say.
So I just wanted to say you're not obligated to, although clearly you can, and there are solid grounds to support this, but if you outline some of the reasons why, then staff could bring back a resolution of denial based upon the grounds that you state, assuming they provide enough evidence for us to draft such a resolution.
And if I could jump on, I completely agree with all of Mr. Rosel's comments on that. There are other options that we have as well. The Planning Commission can direct the parcel to be changed. That is your authority. So if you think it should be rectilinear from one side to the other and give a reason for that, we can engage in that conversation. The Planning Commission has the ability to continue a project to either off calendar or to a future meeting with some direction to the applicant to consider something. So it's not a black and white approval or denial if we have a split vote and concerns of the Planning Commission. There are options that you have.
Well, and that's why at the very beginning, I wanted to bring up the issue of the community workshop and not be spending an hour and a half going through what we can and cannot do when part of my push here is for community workshop and the dicing up of this lot. So I think it would have been easier if we had had those options in here about you can, what, exactly what you just said. Okay, so,
Okay, so process-wise, if we decide to deny this, the applicant has the right to appeal to the city council with a fee,
Correct.
okay? If we decide to continue this at a certain date with our certain desire, because you know what, really, the reason why I ask how much is gonna fit in 1 acre, because I don't think it's a good idea.
I don't either.
I mean, I know it fits, I know it meets the objective, requirements, but that little L, I mean, that little flag or staff, I would call it a staff, but that little area right there's going to be another area that's going to be, maybe challenging to develop in the future because, and then they're going to say, oh, you know what, it doesn't fit. I need a waiver based on 16671 because I can get it. I don't like it, So I don't know if my fellow commissioner would like to continue this and have the applicant reconsider the orientation of the subdivision, or if whether he wants us to make a decision now.
And I would also like if we continue it to a date certain, that it be far enough ahead so that there could be a community workshop.
And staff could help coordinate what those dates would be with the entire commission. That's not a problem. It's also the prerogative of the chair, if you wish to bring up the applicant again to ask questions, if they're open to that. You don't have to do that, but that's an ability that you have as well.
Well, the applicant has two choices, make a decision now or continue it later. I mean, if I'm the applicant, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but it doesn't look like he's going to get a good support. Yeah.
All right. What's his name?
Brucey.
Mr. Russi.
Russi. Come back up here.
Come on, Deidre, he's an old man.
Hi. Have you been able to follow this conversation? Can you
Most of
hear
it.
it?
Most of it.
Okay. So what we're talking about is either voting right now on the proposal that's before us as is, or continuing this hearing so that a different division of this land might be contemplated by you and presented to us, and that you may have enough time to conduct a community workshop. So it would probably be like 60 days? About 60 days? Is that agreeable with you?
Well, I'm in the dark as to what you want to do. How do you want to reconfigure the lot?
Well, that's what we want you to think about. Commissioner Chua, Vice Chair Chua has let him tell you. Tell.
No, I heard him say he didn't like it.
Well, it's because of the size and maybe even the location on your parcel.
Can we bring up the site plan, please? And do we have a red pointer? I don't have one.
Here.
Oh.
Here's mine.
Oh, that's not working.
Yes. Here, here's mine.
Sir, what I'm talking about is this area right here.
Speak up.
What I'm referring to is this area right here. Maybe a challenge to develop because of this. Because I'm a planner by profession, and shapes like this, odd shapes like this, would limit the ability to develop a property because of setbacks, landscape requirements, et cetera, et cetera. So what I was thinking is if you can contemplate to push this line right here all the way up to A Street, and that will give you two lots with almost the same size, with less restriction on setbacks. Is that is that something that you can contemplate? Because your option right now is to make a decision, and from how I feel about it, other commissioners are not willing to not willing to support it. You may get a no vote today, or you could get a revisiting your plan and see if you can get a better, support.
Well, the way I look at it is you're going to do what you want to do, but if you want to continue it, then I'll discuss it with my architect, and we'll either let it go forward or we'll
Okay.
pull the plug.
Okay.
Okay, that sounds fair.
Because it's not fair. The reason why I'm doing this, sir, is because if we deny this today, you will have to appeal this to the city council, and you have to pay an extra fees for that. Now, if you agree to continue it, there's no fee to be paid, right? And you may get a better chance of getting approval.
Or somebody on the city council could appeal it and it would go forward on its own.
That's fine. So
all possibilities are on the table.
Okay, so my recommendation would be to continue this for you for 60 days or so.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
All right.
And Chair.
And I'd make that motion.
Members of the commission, what we could do, our next community workshop is December 16th, so that's coming up. We would simply renotice it using the same description that we have here tonight to alert the community that this is what's being proposed, and then continue to a date certain planning commission meeting of January 16th. That's the third Thursday in January.
And can you put a sign there that says community workshop?
Yes,
The neighbors
we could do that.
That would be really, really helpful.
Yeah, all community workshops also get the notice sign when we have the community workshop.
Okay, so
We will
if-
just have the existing sign refaced.
Sounds great.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Chavez?
there
we have-
was
We have to
talks-
move on this.
I understand. There was talks about a year ago to change the public notices to make it more noticeable to the public, because the black and white, they just ignore it. Is there a way that we can, for the community workshop, maybe put community workshop in red letters or do something to get people's attention?
Let's hang on to that idea as part of the community workshop discussions that we'll have in the future. For this particular discussion, I'm going to stay with our status quo if we can, but we will be sending out the mailers and engaging the community chairs as we typically would.
All right. So commissioners,
Just one comment before
Sure.
I leave the podium. Looking at that 1 acre, I don't think you understand that the median break on Saviors Road brings a driveway into that 1 acre. There's another easement for driveway on the south.
You're right.
A portion of that acre is actually going to become community driveway. Has to.
Well, if that's the case, then
That's the more reason
you
to
need
develop
to
it.
show, yeah, right. to
That's the
develop
more
whole
reason
thing.
to make that lot bigger, because those are restricted. You can't build anything on those easements
That's
because
true.
those are access. So if you have 2 easements, sir,
On one lot.
and you have 2 easements on one lot, here and here, think about the acreage that the area that you're losing already on the development. So if you push this back, that may give you more room to develop, more flexibility.
Or make it go the other way.
I mean, I hate to, plan it from the dais, but I'm just showing you what may be the advantage or the disadvantage.
Well, let's handle our process. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, so I know we were in the middle of deliberations, but given the,
Chair Frank, I think I heard a motion through all of that.
yes,
And-
I'm trying to make it,
And I wrote one down, which I
Okay.
think is what we had, which is
Okay.
to move to continue the project to a date certain of January 16th, 2020, with the applicant to present the project at the December 16th, 2019 community workshop.
perfect. So moved.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Chair Frank,
Yes.
Vice Chair Chua,
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez,
Aye.
Commissioner Meyer,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez,
Yes.
Commissioner Fearing,
Yes.
Commissioner Dozier.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. We're going to take a 5-minute recess, and then we'll come to E4. They say recess is over. Okay. Oh, Commissioner hasn't had his recess snack. Aha, okay. We're moving to E4, the Rio Urbana Development, Planning and Zoning Permit numbers. There are a lot of numbers. Anyway, it's the Rio Urbana Development, and it's Chris Williamson.
Chair Frank, Commissioners, good evening. Yes, there are quite a few PZ numbers up here. I won't read them all, but just to remind the Commission that it's been a month and a half since you had this before you, and there are 7 actions in total for the project: general plan amendment, annexation, pre-zoning, tentative subdivision map, creating 167 condominiums, special use permit for the condominium, special use permit for an office building, and a density bonus. Again, what I just said basically. In addition to that, the area would, when annexed into the city, would be added to City Council District 2. Of course, before construction starts, all the existing structures on the site would have to be removed. This is the former Rio Elementary School, so there's several structures there to take down. The parcel is 10.2 acres, creating 2 parcels, and there's a bit of widening of Vineyard Avenue in front of the project and the relocating of several power poles. So these first couple slides, just to remind you or anyone who doesn't know the project of where it is, you can see it's just north of the Vallarta Market, which is right there. And everything here is just north of the 101 interchange with Vineyard Avenue. This is an aerial photo of the project site. You can see that a good portion of the site is open field, which was at one time part of the school, and the several structures would be removed. There is across the north edge of the property, northeast edge, Rio School Lane that currently is a public lane that dead ends right here, does provide rear access and the only access to that parcel. So this lane would be abandoned by the school district and then incorporated into the project prior to complete annexation. Just to remind you again of the site plan, the property is divided into 2 parcels, one for the office building in the southwest corner. Basically, the building sits in the middle, surrounded by parking, and then 8 multifamily 3-story residential structures and some recreational amenities scattered throughout the project. And around the entire periphery, you have a parking driveway, and up the middle, you have the main parking driveway with several additional buildings or parts of buildings, a recreation center, this is like a gym, this is more like a pavilion type structure, water features and other landscaping features throughout the project. Rendering of the office building facing Vineyard. This is a mock-up of the typical multifamily building. The applicant is here this evening, has their own presentation. And this just shows the site plan with open space and green areas in green, obviously. So going back to October 3rd, when this first came before the Planning Commission, we gave the project presentation. There was a public hearing. The Commission asked many questions and requested some clarifications. So staff has prepared this memorandum that is in your staff report with some new attachments, and the hearing was continued to today, and that's why we are here. So our memo that's in your agenda packet tonight is a memorandum rather than a full staff report, and it addresses your questions and gives some clarifications in 4 topics: traffic, possible changes to the project itself, a short review of some CEQA clarifications, and then the entitlements. The first several slides I want to take some time because you had a lot of concerns about traffic, reasonable and certainly important concerns and questions about understanding how the Vineyard River Park Ventura Road intersection can be LOS, level of service A, when all of us sometimes are caught in traffic there. So the traffic consultant, who is also here this evening, Associated Transportation Engineers, went out and did new counts on October 3rd, which was a Thursday. The original counts in the original study that they prepared for the city were done on March 15th, 2 years ago, 2.5, and that was on a Wednesday. And with the new counts, the intersection, again, calculated to LOS-A. And that is consistent with a traffic study that was done for the area south of the 101, the Topa Tower area, and also for the city's citywide traffic modeling, although that's several years old now. But let me continue to explain, and I hope this helps coming up. So what is level of service? And that's a mathematical calculation of volume to capacity. What does that mean? So follow along if you, but certainly can ask questions. For signalized intersection, each turning movement, meaning left turn, right turn, or going straight ahead, allows a fixed number of vehicles to get through the signal in the green to clear the intersection. And that's assuming they have a certain speed, right? They're not speeding and they're not really slow. This is called capacity. So it's objects moving through space at a certain speed. You only get so many cars can move through there in a 1-minute light cycle, so that's capacity. The vehicle counts that the traffic engineers actually go out and actually count vehicles moving through there, each of these turning movements. They take the counts between 7 and 9 and 4 and 6, and based on those counts, they calculate the peak hour volume. Then you simply do we set up 4 scenarios, the existing volume to capacity ratio, the number of vehicles actually moving versus the theoretical capacity for existing with the project added in, cumulative, meaning future projects are added into the existing without the project, and then cumulative with the project. And the results are expressed as the VC ratio. So for example, 1:1 is a turning movement at capacity, or expressed as simply 1.0. Less than 1.1 is below capacity. So a VC of 0.5, you could say, is 50% below capacity. You should have no problem getting through the signal at a 0.5 VC. If it's more than 1:1, for example, 1.2, you could say that there's 20% too much traffic trying to get through that turning movement in that peak hour period. So that's the VC ratio, a comparison of a capacity to the actual volume, or volume to capacity. The VC metric, that ratio, is then kind of translated by the traffic engineers into through a process called the intersection capacity utilization, or ICU, into a delay, in a seconds of delay, based on what's called a standard reference time. So it's not only the number of vehicles moving through the turning movement, it's the time they need to get through there divided by the length of the green signal. So if you have a 60-second signal and every vehicle takes 6 seconds, you would get 10 vehicles would be your volume, and 6 seconds is the reference time, for example. When you sum up all those times and it exceeds the signal time, you've got delays. So the 11th or 12th or 13th car isn't going to make it through and has to wait another signal. So we end up using these two metrics, VC and ICU delays, to grade an intersection, an entire intersection, and that becomes the level of service. Usually for signalized intersections, you use the VC metric, and other intersections where there's just a stop sign, they express that as delay. And there on the bottom of the screen are your level of service grades, A through F, F being bad, the VC ratios and the delays that go with them. And the city standard there is in the middle of 64 to 73% ratio, VC ratio. So everyone should get through the intersection. It's not at capacity, which would be 1-to-1 or 100%. And this is about as good as I can do. And if you have additional questions, the traffic engineers are both here to follow up on this. I hope that's helpful, but let me continue. At a four-way intersection, which is the River Park, Ventura, Vineyard intersection, you have up to 16 possible movements. A right turn, a left turn, a U-turn, and a straight through. Now, not all movements are allowed, such as a U-turn. Each turning movement can have its own volume to capacity. The sum of all the VCs and the ICUs is the rating of the entire intersection with a mathematical, call it an average, if you will, for the entire intersection. So it's very possible to have some turning movements be to essentially be bad, while other turning movements like a free right turn are A's, and mathematically the whole math works out that you have an LOS-A, even though some turning movements are not. And that's how the whole intersection can be A, even though if you're stuck in that left turn lane, you got to wait one cycle. So I hope that's helpful for that. If you let me move on then, and we can always circle back to that if you wish. Continuing with traffic type questions from your meeting of October 3rd. One of them was, is there a sidewalk up to Struby Street from the project? And here I just wanted to show you the aerial photo that there is. This is Schoolhouse Lane here on the bottom, and there's obviously a sidewalk up here to Struby where you can cross the street and go up to the schools and into River Park. What were the Vineyard Avenue improvements? Over the last 10 or 15 years, Vineyard Avenue was widened between Forest Park, which is further up Vineyard Avenue, down to Carnegie Street, and only on the southbound side, which is the upper part of your image, and the signals were modified to adjust for the traffic and left turn lanes and so forth. Also, there was widening and signal modifications at the intersection we just looked at, River Park and Vineyard. What would be the project traffic fees? The project would pay traffic fees based on the net average daily trips generated and the fee amounts at the time the building permits are issued. So the fee amounts could go up or down. At the moment, based on the current fee amounts, the office development would pay almost $7,900 per 1,000 square feet. So the fee would actually be 15 because it's a 15,000 square foot building. 15 times 9,000 would be the fee for the office building. And for the condominium type development, it's a flat per unit fee there of $62.78. When you add them up using our current rates, the project would pay $1.166 or $1.67 million. The project would also pay a fee not as large to the county of Ventura. Moving on to questions about possible changes to the project itself. First, let me clarify, well, I'll come to that in a minute. Let's get my notes here. Tony Talamonte is here representing the project, so he has his own presentation and may elaborate on some of these or answer your questions. But basically the question of, could one or more buildings have an elevator? The reply is they do not plan to add elevators, although they've looked at it. Are solar panels required by the state? The answer there is yes. Multifamily structures of up to 3 stories will be required to have some amount of solar panels. And that's based on when the building permits are issued and the project's finally approved, which is well into 2020, so that requirement will apply. Could they add a swimming pool? They declined to add a swimming pool at this time, or after looking at it again. Certain palm trees we find to be more of a nuisance than an asset, so they are open, very open to a different tree, different palm tree or another species entirely, subject to the city's approval in the final landscape plan. Adding 3 moderate income units, yes. And here I have a correction, and I apologize. There would be 17 low income units and 3 moderate. They're not all moderate. So the total 20 affordable units, 17 is the original low income, and 3 additional would be moderate, for a total of 12% of the project being affordable. Is there an agreement with Vallarta Market for a gate or an access and so forth? And Tony will happily explain that he's in contact with Vallarta, and they're very open to a property access agreement. The third topic was focused on the mitigated negative declaration, and to clarify and correct some of the text to reflect the final outcome of response to comments and so forth. We've included some of the key pages in your attached to the memo. I do have the entire document available to scroll on the screen if you want to see anything else. But basically, the storm drain was clarified that at this time, the city finds the storm drain is adequate based on the calculations. That is subject eventually to the county's approval, but at this time, the city engineer finds that the project meets the city's standards for this approval. Public safety discussions were augmented in the document, clarifying that the water supply is available and that the transfer of the groundwater extraction allocations does satisfy the city's water neutral policy and is a condition of approval. And finally, that the sewer line capacity in Vineyard Avenue is adequate. There was a follow-up test and was found to have adequate room, if you will, for the project. So none of these clarifications and so forth changed any of the mitigation measures. Nothing here requires recirculation of the MND. And the Joe Power with Rincon is here to answer questions regarding the MND, should you have any. Finally, under entitlements, we've updated all the resolutions. There is a correction, I know, on the tentative map. Again, I'm getting old and worn out, but I did miss one section. I mean, it's condition 33 about the number of affordable units being 17 low and 3 additional moderates. So those corrections will be made wherever necessary in the documents. The request from the meeting of October 3rd was that the residential condition 229 be added to the office SUP. That was done. That condition 2, staff has changed condition 2 for the condos to allow the project to come back and put in elevators, put in solar panels, adjust the roofs, and even put in a swimming pool without having to process a minor modification permit process. So as long as the project overall still remains consistent and the changes are found substantially consistent with the entire package of approvals, staff would process those during the plan check process rather than require a 2 to 3 month minor modification planning permit process. So that's to encourage, in a way, should the applicant later change their minds about elevators and pools. The next steps for this project, if you can make a decision tonight and forward it on, would be for City Council consideration in early 2020. Then the Rio School District, which owns the property, would initiate the abandonment of Rio School Lane. They have to do that through the county, and they also have to apply to Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Agency for the transfer of well allocations and get that started. When the city and the county have a tax share agreement, which we currently don't have, then the city becomes the applicant to LAFCO, the Local Agency Formation Commission, which needs to approve the annexation. Only after the annexation is approved and finalized, then can the project proceed. Then at that time, it's in the city, and the city then becomes the agency issuing the permits and so forth. They need to record a final map in there, and then they can apply, submit their plans for plan check, building permits, and so forth. So recommendations tonight are really the same as before, to adopt the resolutions recommending that the MND is adequate as amended, that the general plan amendment, the annexation are two actions, and then there's on what should be B, would be a pre-zoning, and C would be the tentative subdivision map and the density bonus with corrections to make sure the affordable housing numbers are correct. D would be the special use permit for the office, and E would be the special use permit for the condominiums, both subject to findings and conditions in your packet. Largely the same as before, except as noted. And that is where I will stop. Available for questions, and take it from there.
Okay. Thank you very much. Commissioners, any questions of staff? Vice Chair Chua.
Just quick question. There is a provision, is there a provision requiring the applicant to provide 17 housing, 17 low, and 3 moderate?
Chair Frank and Commissioner Chua, yes, that is a condition of approval on the special use permit for the condominiums, and I think also on the
It's under residential, right?
the residential special use.
Because I don't think I read it. But.
Yeah.
Commissioner, if I may very quickly, and Chris, thank you for your presentation. That condition is baked into both the tentative map density bonus resolution as well as a special use permit resolution. We were scrubbing the resolutions while Chris was going through his presentation, and we did notice a few references that has the 20 low income, so I just wanted to point those out for the record. And we would make the recommendation of changing all those to the 17 low, 3 moderate. So for the record where they pop up, in the tentative subdivision map and density bonus resolution, finding F had referred to solely 20 affordable low-income units.
Okay.
So finding F needs to be updated. If you flip a few pages, condition number 33 would still refer to a total of 20 affordable units, but broken down as 17 and 3 accordingly. If we jump a number of resolutions, it's attachment I in your packet. This is the SUP resolution.
Yeah.
In the title of it, it refers to 20 low-income deed restricted units, and that would need to be modified to be 17 low-income and 3 moderate income. And then finally, the last edit would be way in the back at a condition 132. There would be that same edit to 20 total income restricted units, 17 low, 3 moderate.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah.
And if we get to the point of a motion, which we hope we do for approval tonight, we would bake that into there.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Anyone else? No? Thank you very much. Oh, sorry, I didn't see you. Commissioner Meyer.
Thank you, Chair. Is this the point at which we might get a clarification on the traffic flow? My concern is how the traffic flow from this development will effectively work to get to the freeway. I understood there were 2 alternatives, one being cars finding their way perhaps with a U-turn south on Vineyard, and then the other would be for them to head north on Vineyard and turn right, perhaps with Struby, to go all the way to Rose. So I'm trying to understand just the viability of how that's all going to work for what could be, I guess, 169 times 2 drivers.
Commissioner Meyer, yes, I can use these exhibits here. They aren't quite the right ones, but basically, if you recall, I'll forward first to the project itself. There's three entrances or access points. The old Rio School Lane will be a right out only here. The main driveway would be a right out because there's medians throughout here. And then there's a right out here as well for the office, but the office goes through, as you can see. So if you come out of the southern driveway here by the office, you do have time to get over into this left lane and make a U-turn right there. So that's one option. There's about a stacking here for, I think, 5 or 6 cars. So when the light changes down at Ventura and there's a break in traffic, these cars could scoot out, cross over, and make a left, and kind of make a left U-turn when the Strube light is red. That kind of gives them a break as well on the other side. Anyone coming out of the central driveway shouldn't make that, but that's, I suppose they could, but the idea is they would go further up, as well as these people would go further up to Strube, wait for the light to give them a U-turn. And then as a option that hopefully not a lot of people take, they could turn right on Strube, go over to Rose, and come down Rose to get on the 101. But they should go slow through the El Rio neighborhood, and hopefully that's not going to be a serious issue. So those are the two ways that there was as part of the traffic analysis, the stacking and so forth, it works. We looked at that a lot, and that was a big concern, but it does work. It's not ideal, but it works. And the second, to remember that Vineyard Avenue is Caltrans highway, it's a state highway. We cannot put a signal in because Caltrans said no.
Thank you very much.
Is there a bus on Vineyard?
Yes, Chair Frank, there is a northbound Gold Coast Transit, and the stop is kind of down here just below the edge of the map in front of the Vallarta area.
Oh.
Northbound.
And then that's the end of the stop, end of the road, and it turns around and goes back the other way?
I think it continues out to the further out Vineyard to Juvenile Justice.
There's actually 2 routes. There's one route that goes up to Simon Way, and then it goes through the El Rio neighborhood, and then there's the other one that goes up to the Juvenile Detention Center.
Okay.
So there's actually 2 routes that get to service this area.
And where do they start?
They all, one starts at the Esplanade,
Okay.
Esplanade Drive,
Okay.
and
And
actually
other-
both of them start on Esplanade. One cuts through the River Park community, whereas the other one kind of goes around it.
Okay. Okay, that's good to know. Good to know. Okay.
I just had
Good job.
one quick question in regards to the traffic study. Now, there is, the LOS for the city standard is a C. Can you just tell me what a GT is and an LT is?
Oh, sure. Sorry, but I should have said that. Greater than and less than.
Okay. Now, many times, and we've all seen it, cars that are making left turns will take a yellow light or maybe catch the tail end of a yellow light. Now it's red and they're through the intersection. Is that calculated? How many cars actually gone through a yellow light, even a red light? Or is it just solely the green light?
I'd have to defer to our traffic engineers for that one.
Okay. They're not giving a presentation, or are they?
Well,
Yeah,
they
the applicant.
answer questions.
Part of the
Oh.
applicant.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Darrell Nelson with Associated Transportation Engineers. Can you repeat your question one more time?
So the question was in regards to the counting the cars making a left turn. Is it taking into consideration vehicles that are turning on that yellow light, or is it only the green light that they're being counted on?
They would be, all the left turns in that phase, including the yellow, would be counted.
Okay, so if a car hooks that left on a red light, because, the yellow light car is still somewhat in the intersection, that car is counted in that count.
Every movement is counted. It's not, they don't stop counting because a car broke the law. It would get counted.
I only ask that just because, we've all seen it. Maybe a few of us even done it a few times. But thank you for that.
Sure.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Anyone else? Questions? All right. I have a
The
applicant.
The applicant would like to make.
I have the applicant's speaker card right here, and so I'll call him, Mr. Talamonte.
Great, thank you. Chairperson Frank, Vice Chair, Commissioners, it's great to be back here and presenting the Rio-Urbana project. And first off, I want to thank staff for all the hard work that they've done from the October 3rd hearing to where we are today. Just a brief overview, just to accent what Chris has presented previously. Just the overview. Again, the project is 167 units, including the designated affordable component. And then I want to stress what the project is about with this bullet point. We are trying to bring into the city of Oxnard a market rate affordable project. 167 units into an infill site that will support the city of Oxnard. In addition to that, we're building the two-story administrative office building for Rio School District as part of the program and the permit. We're really proud of the 27% of site landscape and pedestrian openings with the community recreational center. We spent a lot of time looking at the site, and then I'm going to ask our project architect to elaborate further on that. But it exceeds what the city requirements are by design. We looked at how to best bring in new residents with a cross-section of residents having children. So we have the open space, we have the play areas. They're all part of the site plan. Excuse me. Walkability as well to the local retail. Obviously, the Vallarta Market is right next door. Schools, we have the two River Park schools plus the other Rio School District schools in the area. Shopping, restaurants. This, in our belief, is going to really infuse this area to create even more synergy for more restaurants, different retail component in the area as well. As I mentioned earlier, this project definitely supports the city of Oxnard housing need. Again, this is an infill site. Yes, there's challenges, but I think we've really examined every challenge, brought those forward to staff, had great discussion with staff with respect to how to best solve this. And then also importantly for this project is that the co-applicant on the project is Rio School District. I'd like to introduce Joe Kirstenstein, representing Rio School District, just to say a few words on this. Thank you.
Good evening. I want to be very, very brief. If you have any questions, I'll be more than glad to answer them. I made my comments last time. Just wanted you to know I'm here because the district is very supportive of this project, extremely supportive of it. Thank you.
Joel, thank you very much. Going on to the next slide, I'd like to now introduce Lori Summers. She's our project architect. She's also the Southern California Design Director for KTGY, a registered architect. I'd like to have her walk through the site plan again, and then also walk you through a series of slides that we have with respect to this project. We're going to talk about those same six questions that Chris brought forward earlier. We'd like to elaborate on those. But for now, I'd like to introduce Lori Summers, please.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for having me again. Lori Summers, Director with KH2Y. And I know that you guys have had some lengthy presentation on this project, so I'll try to be brief and keep to some of the main points and just really reiterating, as Tony said, this idea that we can meet that middle that is so missing nowadays in housing and both provide affordable units that are very much needed, but also provide affordable market rate units, which are so very much missing and make so much new construction unaffordable to so many residents in the area. So that's really what this project brings, and we really focused on, therefore, quality construction, quality design, quality details, and a quality environment for the residents to be able to get out into and use and activate. And so that was very important throughout the consideration of this project. And you'll notice what, in my mind, things that make this project so different in terms of that quality of space, with this idea of these drive courts that really take these garages and internalize them and really put the focus of views from units out onto the green space and make this a project that is very welcoming, has a lot of eyes out onto the space, and really supports this concept of neighborhood and the ability of people to walk through the neighborhood, use all the various amenities throughout the neighborhood, including the tot lot space, the barbecues, the dog run, and all those spaces, and really develop an internalized community space here. And just again reiterating the level of quality with respect to the design and architecture, and just really focusing on those details and being able to bring that into this market scenario. And of course, continuing on with the office building that is down to our southwest corner. Now I'd just like to go through the questions and some of the clarification comments that you had and just elaborate a little bit more from what Chris had to say. And again, would ask you to think about some of these things with respect to that understanding. And I did have a lengthy conversation and review of the design with the applicant with respect to understanding what it would mean to put residential elevators in, and and what would need to go into that, and as well the long-term scenarios of impacts of that. Certainly one of the big concerns for a project of this scale is that for 16 to 24 units to maintain a commercial grade elevator is quite expensive. It's a very significant long-term HOA cost, and certainly something that is at this point something that they're very sensitive to in terms of the overall affordability to residents on a long-term basis as they are buying into this project. I do want to clarify that I think there was some confusion, a little bit of confusion last time about whether there was or at all solar panels on the residential building, and do confirm that yes, there are solar panels on the residential building, and those certainly will be installed and will be compliant with Title 24, which, as many of you may know, is doing a reboot as of January 1st, and this project will be part of the latest guidelines, which are much more significant. And again, I think it's been more than reiterated, but there was some discussion last time to add to the 17 low-income units, and the applicant has agreed to add the 3 moderate-income units to the project.
Laurie, thank you very much. And then continuing on, the commission had asked for written confirmation from Vallarta relative to our discussion on a resident access gate. I believe in your package you should have a email confirmation from me and back and forth to the property managers of.
I didn't see it.
Okay. I have copies of that, so that can be provided to the commissioners. But I have spoken, and then also have confirming emails of their interest to allow a pedestrian access gate. And I'll go to the site plan. Chris, what did I do here? Okay. We do have the pedestrian access gate shown on our landscape site plan at this location. This landscape plan has been shared with the Vallarta Market, and they're very interested to look at what this gate will look like, how it will function. Obviously, they have their concerns as well with respect of residents not coming in through the front and coming in through a gate opening. So I'd welcome any thoughts of what the Planning Commission would like to see on that, and we can add those to our project conditions. But in our discussions with Vallarta, they do want to participate in that gate design as well. So we've left it as it's shown on the plans now. The fifth question that we noted was the removal of the palm trees to drop fronds. We're welcome to pulling those specific palm tree species out of the project design. They were intended to accent the design, the architecture, and kind of blend in with what the city of Oxnard is doing citywide. But for this project, we're welcome to substitute those palm species, and then to note also that the palm trees within this community will be maintained by the master HOA as well.
So that's okay. That's not too expensive?
I'm sorry?
Maintaining palm trees, not too expensive?
Yeah, that is worked into our HOA costs on a tree maintenance basis.
But
Is it expensive?
But it's too expensive for an elevator or a pool, but they'll take care of palm fronds.
Well, that's, I just want to add the note that we can maintain those.
Yeah,
That's worked into our HOA costs. If we eliminate those, then that's fine as well. I mean, we will have another accent tree that will have maintenance as well. So that maintenance cost is not going away. So just to note on the landscape plan, most of the palm trees that were noted were inside the courtyard areas along this entry near the patio area, as well as in the access to the Vallarta Market as well. And then the sixth item was to add a community swimming pool. We looked long and hard at this one. The cost of construction, cost of maintenance exceed what we have looked at for realistic costs for the project overall. There's also the health and safety concerns long-term, on-site management costs, the risk that the HOA needs, the risk insurance as well that the HOA would need to maintain, which again is all paid for by the residents there. What we look at as well is that, well, with our current site plan, where would a pool fit? It's not something that we just want to plop into our current site plan. I think it would create more concern, so we would want to also look at that further. But again, just based on, again, what we want to reinforce is what this project wants to be. It wants to be a market rate affordable project that the homeowners moving in understand their cost to move in, and then also understand what their long-term HOA costs are going to be. And then you combine those with their mortgage. We want to make this, again, a market rate affordable project. In summary, just again, I'm going to reiterate, you know, we've taken a lot of time and energy, as Lori has pointed out, to look at realistic cost, make this an inviting project for families. We feel very comfortable, very confident that it's an aesthetic design, and it will be a quality construction for market rate affordable. There's the affordable resident costs that I talked about earlier. We want to be able to, again, identify what the HOA costs are going to be. There's a landscape cost, there's other costs of building maintenance, roof maintenance. They're all worked into an HOA cost. And the HOA costs are not just monthly maintenance. When you calculate a cost, there's also a 15-year full replacement that the State Department of Real Estate requires you to collect. So it's just not strictly maintenance. It's also preparing to repair the roof, replace the roof. All these items that a attached condominium unit project like this are all part of ownership, all part of a master HOA. Again, supporting the City of Oxnard housing needs. We do request your favorable recommendation for this project. We think it's a great project for the City of Oxnard, and we're open to any questions that you may have at this time.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, any questions of the applicant? Commissioner Chavez?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Talamonte, thank you for coming back and your patience. I know we were supposed to meet on the 7th, but conflict issues. This presentation just opened another long list of questions, and I'll go ahead and dive in. And the Madam Chair, she, you know, kind of started where I wanted to start at, was in regards to the costs for the elevators, for the swimming pools. You say that you guys are pretty much trying to keep the costs down, and I can respect that. What are the HOA pricing that you guys are proposing to the tenants that end up moving in, or do you guys not have those numbers yet?
We don't have those numbers fully calculated. What we're working with now are basically rough numbers from past projects. We know roof area, we know building siding, we know that the painting of the parking lot, especially landscape as well, tree trimming, shrubs, all of that, all constitute a cost. If we can stay within this range below $150 to $200 a month is really what our goal is. We start talking about a swimming pool, elevators, that easily will elevate it $75 to $100 a unit.
That's just for a swimming pool or for both items, a swimming pool and the elevators?
The pool, just general numbers, general numbers that we look at. There's an annual maintenance of, gosh, close to,
that's fine.
Yeah, I mean it's a significant number, and I just don't want to give you a number that's inflated, that's too low.
Okay. Now, have you guys projected what the market price or market value for these units would be once they finally open up?
We have. We're looking at a general price point, 450,000 plus or minus, and then we have the 1 bedrooms. We have the 3 bedrooms. And that will be above and below that. Our goal is to stay in that $400,000 to $450,000 range.
Okay.
And then, again, this is going to be driven by market rate. We want to bring residents in. It's not our goal to hold on to a project and then for a great length of time. That doesn't work anymore.
Now, based off of other projects that you've done, do any of them have elevators?
Not at the 3-level, no.
Not at a 3-level?
No. And the, if I can add, we had a whole series of 3 levels built in River Park, and those units did not have elevators. There's elevators in the commercial buildings because of the permits, but these are flats, which are entirely different.
Okay. I'm aware of the River Park. I have a family member that lives over there. Unfortunately, her elderly mother, who's in her 80s, can't get to her apartment. And she's on the 3rd floor because there's no elevators, and she can't walk up the flights of stairs. So that's unfortunate, but hey, you're working within the city code. Solar panels on your slide number 10, the last 2 bullet points, it says reduce market rate affordability and cost increase for resident maintenance costs. Can you elaborate a little bit on that, or was that to cover bullet point number 2, where it says covered carports are not proposed?
That was more so for the carports.
Okay. Number 3, I appreciate the clarification, because during the last meeting, I did ask in regards to those 17 units if they were low income or moderate, because the staff report said moderate. And so thank you for that clarification. And thank you for bumping those additional units into that mix. Unfortunately, there was no email confirmation with in our packets, so I wasn't able to see that.
What I can do in that regard, I will make sure staff has a copy of that, and then I'll ask staff if they could do a distribution of that, if that's okay with.
Staff would be happy to do that, if that's the pleasure of the chair.
Well, it's kind of after the fact, yeah. So I suppose we can just say that the gate will be subject to further confirmation between the applicant and Vallarta Markets, subject to planning director approval.
Yeah.
Something like that. You're going to have to put that language in, because we haven't seen it.
So in regards to your summary page, and again, thank you for really following up on all of our concerns. There were a couple of concerns that weren't brought up in regards to the play areas. In particular, next to building number 2 is a play area that is right there off of Vineyard. It was brought up by myself, and the Madam Chair also echoed the concerns in regards to the closeness to Vineyard Avenue and the lack of any fencing. Or maybe that might be during plan checks that may be there, but that was a concern just because of how close it was to, as it was already mentioned, a state highway, pretty much.
Yeah, I think our primary, and really from the beginning, our primary intent for primary activated play areas, and where we actually have amenities activated, are the main paseos and the central area on the south side. What you're seeing really is as we certainly have been working with staff for quite some time, was a concern on their part to make sure that there were smaller areas throughout the site that wouldn't necessarily necessitate somebody taking taking a walk over to that space to be able to get out into an area that wasn't that actually had had turf, if you will, and that wasn't overly planted with other things, but that was open space. So those what you're seeing in those smaller areas is really a reaction to that conversation, and making sure that throughout, so it's certainly not our ideal scenario of where we intended for people to go, but basically, in order, if you are up there at building 2, in order to have something anywhere nearby you, it inherently is such up at the front. But certainly that's not one of the amenitized open areas that we are trying to draw people to. So
Okay.
it's really more just an accent space that if you happen to live right there at that building,
You could go out there
You
and-
could go out there. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's really more an augmentation.
Now, on slide number 15, I kind of missed it when Mr. Talamonte was speaking on it. The dotted lines around the buildings, the district office, what were those again?
I believe you're referring to the oh, you might be referring to the blow up. Are you referring to those lines?
Yeah, all the lines around the buildings.
So those lines that Chris is highlighting right now are just blow ups. So in your package, in your full package, there are landscape blow ups of those areas at a bigger scale that show
Okay.
you more detail and more clearly clarify the amenities that are in those spaces. It's just hard to show you at the full building, full site scale, all the amenities that are available.
Got it. I thought it was fencing being put up around them. And I was like, wait a minute. I thought this was an open concept. And in regards to the trees, the only reason why I made the comment in regards to the trees and the applicants looking into different types was because of comments that were made up here on the dais about not providing shade and stuff like that. So I'm glad that you guys are looking into that.
Yeah.
Something that's a little bit
And
more
there
sustainable.
certainly are a lot of shade trees. In fact, I would say more, I could be wrong, but my understanding in looking at the landscape plan is that it's actually more shade trees, and that actually the palm trees are more in accent locations. So for instance, when there's a pedestrian crossing, the palm trees are actually used almost as like a beacon and understanding that like that's where the pedestrian crossing is. And so you'll see a couple at that pedestrian crossing where you can actually cross the central drive aisle. So there's actually quite a few shade trees throughout the site, and I think the palm trees have been used more as a slighter way of signalizing some of the activity on the site and where crossings are and things like that.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank the applicant and staff for the presentation. If you could just walk me through one more time the decision why not to have elevators in the residence and in the units, whereas and that being said, can you also confirm that there will be an elevator in the building? The school district
The
building?
office building. Yes, there's an office, there's an elevator in the office building, certainly, and that needs to be accessible to staff and the public, et cetera. So there's definitely an elevator in that building. Elevators at three stories, really 4 stories is generally speaking, when you do most often go to an elevator, and once you get to that level, often you are also getting to a density level where they both are kind of required from a convenience level, but also are able to more maintain those things. Generally speaking, at this level, more so elevators are done for if it's like if this was an assisted living facility or dedicated, even just dedicated senior apartments. If we were coming in, if this was a dedicated senior apartment building, that's most commonly when a 3-story building would end up with an elevator.
And earlier in your presentation, I'm not sure, but I just wanted to verify, did you state a unit price that these units will be selling for?
Yes, I provided a price point that we're staying of about 450,000 as an average range. And then again, we have units that are 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom. So that price point
Would
will.
be for which one?
I'm sorry?
Would be for which one?
Well, that's our market rate, or that's our market study that we're doing now, because as we bring these to the marketplace, which is going to be in about, if we meet our schedule objectives, it's about 14 months out.
I understand. I don't want to interrupt on Commissioner Dozier, but, you know, when you say it's 450, it's 450 for what, the 1 bedroom? Or
No,
the
it's
3-bedroom?
it's 450,000.
Average?
Average.
Okay.
And then we have the spread of 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom,
Okay,
to 3 bedroom.
okay,
So you see fluctuation there. I also added that our goal is to stay in this
Right.
$450,000 price point on average.
On average.
Yeah,
Commissioner
one point
Dozier,
I would
did
like
you
to
have some
add,
other
though.
question? Yeah. Let him ask another question.
If I may.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that clarification. And also, while you're there, I do also believe that I heard $250 a month for the HOA fee.
That would be at its highest. We look at what HOAs are paying throughout for an attached unit with the square footage of the landscape that we have, the roof area that we have, and it's in that $200,000 to $250,000 or excuse me, $200 to $250 a month, and we're trying to really keep that low. We want our homeowners to understand this is what the HOA cost is going to cover. If we could lower it, we will, but we have certain criteria that the state imposes relative to calculation of HOA fees.
Okay, thank you for that. The reason why I asked the questions I did is because I'm a resident of River Park. I've been there for 10 years, and for 10 years I paid Melrose and I paid 2 HOAs, so I understand your concern of not raising the HOA to where it's, it makes the property almost unattractive to the average homeowner. That being said, I also acknowledge that there are some units out in River Park that are 3 stories and they have no elevator. Those units, however, I believe were approved 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and there was a different mindset. But for me, I think that for a $450,000 unit and $250 in HOA, I would like to see an elevator. So that's just my concern. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Oh, sorry. Commissioner Meyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. All right. Some of the questions I had around traffic and shade trees were responded to, and I appreciate that. So my question with the solar panels, maybe you can help me to understand what the requirements are, what the new requirements coming in 2020 are, as far as, because it sounds like what you're saying is on the buildings themselves, there'll be a requirement that there are some solar panels. I've seen like in Camarillo, they have some places where they have like a smattering of solar panels, and it almost, I worked in solar for a little while, and I know what it takes to actually generate enough to make a significant dent in somebody's power bill, and I have it on my home as well. And so I'm wondering, is this more that the state has a minimum level that, would satisfy them but wouldn't generate a significant difference in terms of the power needs? Can you give me some numbers to go to that?
I won't say that I'm an expert on it, so I won't be able to give you specific numbers. In fact, we just did a kind of a broad overview training a few months ago from VCA, who does energy modeling. And
Perhaps, sorry to interrupt you, Dr. Williamson, do you have the information on the new solar legislation going into effect in January?
Chair Frank, no, I don't.
Okay, sorry.
But it might be helpful to perhaps, I don't want to answer for her, but for a building of this size, the space set aside within the roof, so you don't see the solar panels, really. They're kind of behind the portion of the roof. And they're probably going to be used to light the building hallways, you know, and so there'd be like a battery. It would charge the battery during the day, and then that battery would run the lights in the hallways and stairwells, and not really go to units per se. So that might be one scheme. Is that
Because they're on separate meters,
they're on different
right?
meters, the house
So
meter.
it would be for the HOA.
Yeah, and then the
functions.
HOA doesn't have to pay that electric bill, which is what everyone who lives there has to pay. So it does help them indirectly, would be
Gotcha.
one way to do it, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, and to clarify, there's updates to CalGreen and the Energy Code, so it's not like an isolated ordinance. It's the overall building code upgrade that goes into effect on January 1st, and so it's built into a larger portion of that. It's not an isolated ordinance, and essentially most buildings of this scale now will need to be modeled to put in their insulation and everything, and factor all of that in, and then illustrate that they are able to meet a certain energy level. And our understanding from VCA is that it will be virtually impossible to do buildings like this that do not have solar in some capacity in the after January 1st.
Okay, thank you. So as far as the exploration of a significant like solar system, I know that that area is pretty well sun drenched. It's very efficient as far as the potential. And it's a large property, and other schools, you know, just as this is and was a school, have done significant, just as county buildings, like the county government office and I think Public Works have done major solar infrastructures built in that can save, you know, 6 to 7 figures on power bills, and could be a moneymaker in terms of being a partner with the utility. Had that ever been thought of in terms of an option because of the large amount of
I know that
area you
the
have?
owner is already in talks with solar providers to try to to try to get them, to get more detail in terms of studying so that they fully understand, so they can make sure that they are kind of maximizing their potential on the building, certainly.
If I can add to that, and thank you, Lori. There's on the Title 24. There's and I'm not the expert on that, but there's a criteria of meeting certain standards, and then that standard is going to be through use of solar panels, windows, insulation, just everything that will reduce energy consumption for that unit, for that building. I also have solar as well, so I've got firsthand knowledge with respect to how it's calculated. We are looking at different solar consultants now, and looking at, with respect to the roof area, how much solar energy can be generated, how that solar energy is going to be then separated on a per unit basis, and then what that percentage is going to be. And then that becomes a cost savings for each of the residents in there.
And as far as the carport concept, because in order to get a significant amount of solar energy developed from this property, it would likely have to come through carports. That's typically what you see at the schools, what you see in the big government buildings and others. Has that already been something that has been deemed not feasible, or has there been discussions in terms of it actually being a partnership? I know that the SCE put out offers for partnerships around generating solar in significant capacities to make up for the power plant that was defeated, that sort of a thing. Has there been any exploration of that?
No, we've not entered into any a discussion with Southern California Edison with respect to adding increased electrical generation on the project itself. What we're looking at primarily is compliance with Title 24 and how to best achieve that. Solar panels are definitely a add to that, but generating in excess of that, that's not something that we have explored.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I have nothing. Okay, thank you very much. I have one speaker card. Pat Brown. Opening the public comment.
This project reminds me of the one at the 5 Points intersection, which seemed like forever to build. I don't know why, but it just took for a very, very long time. A lot of the time they weren't doing anything, probably trying to get some more money or something. I have a number of comments about this because I've lived in many different apartment buildings and condo complexes. It boils down to 167 units, but when you take off the 17 that are the low-income units, you end up with 150. It seems nowadays, in the past, 25 years or so, if you've got one bedroom, you have one parking space. If you have 2 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms, you have 2 parking spaces. Then you also need the guest parking spaces. And unfortunately, where I live in a mobile home park here in downtown, this place was built by Bud Smith many, many years ago, and he didn't put in nearly enough parking for guest parking, and only one for each unit. And there's 152 units, or 152. So there's never enough parking. And we're always fighting for parking spaces out on the street and so forth. So it's better to add that in and make that happen to begin with instead of being without it, because otherwise you're going to have to find a vacant lot somewhere to park cars. It's very frustrating if you're in that problem. Swimming pool, I think would add a great deal to this. We have a swimming pool, and you only really use it from, say, May to November anyway, and the rest of the time it's just covered over. Doesn't have to be cleaned on a regular basis or anything if you got it covered. But it's a real plus. So I would suggest it. I also suggest for this many units, as we have in 152, we have 3 separate ways to get out of the complex in case of an emergency. One that we use regularly, that's a gated unit. But then there's 2 other units gates that we can open up if there's an emergency, earthquake, fire, whatever. This is being put in a very tight spot because you've got a grocery store and you've got a school. If something happens, you got to get out of there immediately. So I would suggest that.
All right.
I
Thanks.
have a number of other
you.
suggestions, but I'll give them to the people that are actually going to be involved. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, is there anyone else who would like to speak on this item? I have no other speaker cards. I see a gentleman walking. Did you submit a speaker card?
I did not, and
Okay,
but you suggested, and anybody else wanted to speak, I'll fill it out right now.
Well, you can fill it out after you're finished.
Thank you, Madam
Sure.
Chair and Commissioners. And staff and the whole community that's here, not a whole lot of people behind us, but
Tell us your name.
my name is Armando Delgado. I am a lifelong resident of Oxnard. I am also a carpenter with the Southwest Regional Council of Carpenters, Local 805. You know, the Gold Coast Carpenters consist of about 1,800 members. I've said this before, time and time before, and we're growing every day. We have a trained and skilled workforce. We are picking up veterans and women, students, and just overall disadvantaged community members. wasn't going to say a whole lot, but, listening to some of the comments and also watching the presentation, we've invested substantial time and effort in providing our community with opportunities, especially for work. And I know we're always talking about more housing, more housing. And it's really important is that we have SB 1 money that we want to tap into. And the only way to do that is to actually have more housing. Oh, not the only way, but it's one of the ways to have more housing. And I know we're running out of space in Oxnard. There's a lot of protected land, but we want to take advantage of infill projects like this. And if you've seen what the River Park has done, it's made everything else get better. It's kind of the same concepts and ideas that we've been talking about South Oxnard. You want to revitalize the area. I've been around El Rio a very long time, and a project like this really makes sense. But I also want to be clear. The Carpenters do not have an agreement with the school district or the developer. So we're not here just saying, hey, we're with you. We're not. It makes sense to us, but the district has been nice and kind with our contractors to where a lot of our apprentices and a lot of our membership has been able to work close to home. So we want to take advantage of a situation like this where we'll have housing for our membership to be able to build it and then have an opportunity to live there. In the school district, they have a lot of projects coming online. And we've been fortunate enough to be taking advantage of that and working close to home. So it makes sense. But all in all, it's the housing. And from talks about the wharf, talks about South Oxnard, on the shores, everywhere, it's constant housing. And these projects keep coming up and they keep getting fought back. At what point are we going to say, hey, let's get some of these going. Let's see if they do work. Let's see what they do for our community. I urge you today, push this forward. Let's see where we can go with this. And I'll talk to the contractors, developers on my own, see if we can get some work out of it. But either way, it makes sense for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I have no other, please fill out a speaker card. Yes, I will. Thank you. Sure.
I'd like to add just one more item as I was listening to the prior speaker. And I've been talking about market rate affordability. And then it dawned on me, I didn't do a good job in explaining who that is and then who we're really trying to capture into this.
I think we understand.
In this community. It's teachers,
yes,
it's firemen, it's policemen.
We know.
So I just want to thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. Okay, we understand. All right, I don't see any other speakers. So I'll close public comment. Commissioners, ready to deliberate? Commissioner Meyer?
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I appreciate the time and effort that the applicant has gone in through to do their best to address our concerns. I'm not fully satisfied with the interpretation and the explanation of how the traffic will work, but I understand that the efforts were made. And as a person who experiences that intersection on a daily basis and those several intersections, I'll just have to accept the judgment and see how it works out. So beyond that, I understand that not everything that all of us desired is in this, but I do see concessions made to move in that direction. So I appreciate those efforts, and I understand the need for the project. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Dozier?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank the applicants and staff for the presentation and information. And like my fellow commissioner stated, I too acknowledge the concessions that were made from the first time this project came forward and until today, that being 20 more units. So now you're 12% instead of 10% of the units for affordable and moderate units. So that's a good deal for everyone. I am still disheartened that we couldn't come out with an agreement on elevators, because I think for a unit $450,000, it should be considered. However, that being said, I also have to acknowledge that we do have a need for housing, and the elevators aside, I like everything else about the project. So I can support this project. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Chavez.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for everyone that spoke and for the presentations. I believe this is a good project. It seems to be well planned, well thought out. I'll echo the concern with the whole elevator aspect. Unfortunately, that's the city code. You operate within it, but $450,000 average cost for a unit, and then your HOA fees going from 150 up to 250, and all you get is your grass cut, trees trimmed, make sure that your parking space is clean. I think it's a little bit of a shortfall for the residents by far. I like the project in the sense that it does provide a lot of opportunities for new families. You have about 3 local schools. You have the grocery store right next door. You have restaurants across the street that you can choose from, and you have public transportation, 2 routes that you can choose from. Those are benefits. That's really an urban living type of deal where you can live, work, and play. I also appreciate many of our concerns being addressed in regards to the number of units that we're going to be moderate to low income available to the public. And I appreciate Commissioner Dozier bringing that up, because that was one of my points to bring up during our last meeting, but throughout the 20 million questions that I asked staff, I missed that one. So thank you, Commissioner, for bringing that up. Other than that, it's a great project, and I can support this. I would recommend the applicant to reach out to local labor groups, like I mentioned during our last meeting, to keep our tax dollars here in Oxnard. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Our tax dollar? Okay. Vice Chair Chua.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this is a good project. It can't go in a better place as far as traffic is concerned. I know that there's concern about the intersection on Vineyard, but I figured, where else do you want to put this amount of units but next to a freeway? So, I think it's a good project. It's not perfect. I mean, can't have everything we have. I mean, everything we want, but I'm willing to support this. Thank you.
Commissioner Sanchez.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate everything that Mr. Talamonte and your team over there have done, because you have convinced me, and probably others, that you have created a well-planned development that's going to provide very needed housing here in our, here in Oxnard for our people. There was an article probably about a month ago or so that we seem to be losing people, and so that's not speculation, that's a fact. And part of it has to do with the cost of housing, and as well as finding opportunity. And so part of what that article was saying was that if we don't build the housing, or if it becomes too expensive, there's going to be a tipping point where people continue leaving. And then if the workers leave, then so do the employers. So this is a well-needed development here, and hopefully there are others that come. Or if you bring other projects to us here in Oxnard, definitely we need the housing. So, appreciate what you've done, and look forward to approving this.
Commissioner Fuhring?
Yep. Thank you, applicant. Thank you, staff, for bringing this project to us, and the opportunity for 20 good low-income, medium-income units. I can support this project.
Yeah, I agree with all my commissioners. So does someone want to propose a motion?
I'll move to adopt a resolution recommending approval to the City Council.
Second.
Based on staff's recommendation.
And with
all the
and with
amendments.
There were two modifications that I heard, so I just want to be clear with the commission. One was very explicit, which was essentially make universal changes to identify 20 total affordable units, 17
Right.
low income, 3 moderate. That's going to be in the tentative subdivision map / density bonus resolution and the special use permit for the residential resolution. The second one that I heard, not explicitly said, but wanted to share was there's a comment about the property access agreement
gate.
for pedestrian access.
Mhm.
So the condition that I think the commission would like to add would be added explicitly to the map resolution, which is prior to recordation of the final map, the developer shall prepare a property access agreement for pedestrian access to the satisfaction of the city attorney, and the document will be recorded and executed prior to building permit issuance.
With FIR to market.
Correct.
Yes.
That's who that's intended to. We could drop that in here.
Yes, perfect.
And we'll make it, rather than explicitly via to market, we'll
Just
make it to the
premise
property to
holder.
the south.
Yeah, right.
So it's more generic and long-term.
Perfect. Okay. So we have Chua's motion to incorporate those modifications.
All the amendments, yes.
Okay, so I have a motion, second by Sanchez. Roll call.
Vice Chair Chua,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez,
Yes.
Commissioner Fuhring,
Yes.
Commissioner Dozier,
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez,
A big yes.
Commissioner Meyer,
Yes.
Chair Frank.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. We'll move to study session reports. We have no study session reports. Planning Commission business. Commissioner Chavez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple items that I just wanted to make mention was that the City of Oxnard, in cooperation with VCTC, the City of Ventura, and I believe it was Thousand Oaks and Moore Park,
Thousand Oaks.
Thousand Oaks, held the autonomous vehicle, how that's going to be affecting us in the future. It was a great presentation. I believe our city needs to do more of those little kind of knockoff version of a TED Talk, but it was really great. The second item that I want to bring up, and Mr. Roselle, this might be a question for you. The City Council, when the new city manager came on, they passed the Sunrise ordinance saying that the agendas and items should be brought to them 12 days prior to the meeting. Is that something that could apply to us? Unfortunately, we received the applicant packet today, minutes before, their presentation that they did. We received this, like 20 minutes before they actually presented, but could that apply to this commission as well? I know it's a keg, but I believe this keg sits a little bit higher compared to the other kegs.
The sunshine ordinance relates to when staff reports are prepared, and that also includes the PowerPoints, but documents presented by either project opponents or project proponents don't have that same requirement. If they want their documentation to be included in the packet, they need to meet that deadline, but if not, under the law, they have the right to present verbal and written testimony anytime up until the hearing starts.
Okay. We wanted clarification on that.
So thank you for that. And other than that, happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Anybody else have anything? No. Have a great holiday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Frank, if I can, for just quickly, and I'm going
Sure.
to try to go as quickly as possible with this. We haven't met since October 7th, so there are a
We
number.
what?
We haven't met since October 7th, and there's been a number of, or 17th, there's been a number of different items that have happened, so just to
Okay.
bring everyone up to speed. Back on October 29th, the City Council received a presentation regarding the new housing laws and the RENA status. We intend to bring that to the Planning Commission, so I just wanted to let you know that on a future light agenda, that should be coming to you. On November 5th, the City Council held a hearing on short-term rentals and, in effect, adopted all the recommendations that the Planning Commission had previously requested. It had been continued to December 3rd for final adoption, but they made some requests to include clarification for timeshares that weren't previously in there. So consequently, we're still bringing it to December 3rd, but we're holding another first hearing of it because we didn't originally have the timeshare discussion in there, which means December 3rd, technically it's a new first hearing, and then we anticipate the second hearing of that ordinance to occur on December 17th. But just to keep you in the loop on all of that.
And you know that the neighbors are all going to say you planned it right around Christmas so that no one will show up, no one will be there. That's what happens when important stuff gets scheduled like that. They think you do it on purpose. I'm just letting you know.
We've heard those criticisms in the past. This is all
we can do,
all
'cause-
above board, and presenting the will of the council, reacting to the community at large. But that happened on November 5th. November 7th.
So are you going to get that out as soon as possible?
It's actually out. I got
Okay.
notice that you can look online, and it's available when you get home tonight. You can look at the changes to make it easier so the Planning Commission and residents can see the changes. We redline the ordinances so you can see exactly what the changes are. So
And
I
that's
think
on the website?
It's on the website right now as we speak. I think you'll be pleased.
Okay. Well, thank you. I mean, I can copy and paste it into Nextdoor and
Correct.
all of that stuff.
It's posted
Yeah.
online.
Okay.
And I highlighted timeshares as the big thing. There were a couple other changes
Right,
that occurred, but the timeshare was
Well, I mean,
probably
I know
the
what they are, but
the other changes, there was a second homeowners association.
I know, yeah.
That
Yeah,
asked to
and
be
it-
excluded. That's been done. But that's posted online.
Okay.
November 7th, that's when the city council held a special meeting the night that you usually meet. And they heard the Fisherman's Wharf project that evening. The city council recommended denial of that local coastal program amendment. That's all that I'll say about that one. November 19th, so just a few days ago, city council also met, and they gave the green light for us to move forward with the Saviors Emergency Shelter, a lease on that particular building. So I'm bringing that up because that's a project that will eventually come before all of you. So just know that we're moving forward with an emergency shelter. Some other upcoming ones, I just mentioned December 3rd, we have the City Council reviewing the short-term rentals. They will also have an item on their calendar for the 7-Eleven project on Saviors Road that we had denied in this chamber. The applicant did end up appealing that decision. There's a requirement in our code that we must bring it before the City Council within a certain amount of time. So December 3rd is that date. Excuse me. But the applicant also submitted a request to stay the hearing at the same time so they can think about maybe other options and solutions. So in short, they basically reserve their right to appeal the decision as we're trying to figure out different solutions to that project. So more to come on that one, but just wanted to let you know since you were all involved in that discussion. And on December 17th, we are anticipating bringing the Clinicus appeal back to the City Council. A big change has occurred with that project where they ultimately said the building was too big as they originally designed it. They have made their building smaller. Their project is now consistent with our parking regulations.
Yes.
So we will be cleaning that up with the City
Good.
Council.
It took a
as,
while to figure it out.
Gee. Well, that's very good news.
So I did want to share those good things with you
Important.
as it relates to the council.
Thank you.
That's nice.
There's a couple items I wanted to go over really quick with you for Planning Commission, and then I will stop. So the Planning Commission, your next meeting is December 5th. Short meeting compared to this one. We're going to ask that you look at the 2020 calendar and adopt that. In addition, there's one wireless project that we're going to be bringing to you, a mono eucalyptus tree at 161 Ventura Boulevard. So it should be a short and sweet meeting is what we're hoping, because those are the only items on that calendar. And there are some training opportunities we wanted to make sure that you're all thinking about right now. 2 trainings happen annually. The Planning Commission Academy that's presented by the League of California Cities is happening March 4th through 6th. It's up in Sacramento. I'm putting that seed in your head so you can start thinking about schedules. So again, March 4th through 6th for League of California Cities. On the second half of the year, we have the California American Planning Association Conference. It's happening in Riverside. So think about those things. The dates for that one would be September 12th through the 15th. There are a number of other items you've all asked us to think about bringing back to future meetings as discussion items. I'm not going to go into those other than to say we have a running list of Planning Commission requested things, and we'll work with the chair to schedule those items. So happy holidays, and it looks like we have a quick question.
Thank you, Planning Manager. So with regard to the trainings like the March 4th through 6th, is that something that the city funds?
Correct.
How does that actually work?
Correct. We do have a budget. We don't have a budget for everyone all at once, so there's a process we'll work with all of you. This is really just to start seeing who's interested. We do encourage the training, and then we'll work on budget accordingly.
Great, thank you.
Okay, we stand adjourned.
Thank you.